vein, and the city might be a valuable survey asset because of that. But why is it called the Contaminated City? Well, according to an in-game cutscene,
What's up, people? How's it going?
left lethal contamination in its
I just saw
which reveals that burned up coral
this vid
is in fact
released
lethal. But then
by
live
VantiVidya.
coral is also lethal. Later on, there are warning symbols for coral caution, and live coral absolutely wrecks your AC. It even has a damage type that's all its own. A damage type there are no defenses for. So I think the word contaminated might just relate to coral in general. Which brings me to the grids, the structures that tower and interlink in skies across Rubicon. Now, this is just speculation, but I think they might have been built to avoid coral contamination on the ground. It wouldn't be the first time that humanity has had to escape to the skies to avoid lethal surface contamination in the Armored Core series. And what's interesting about these grids is that they actually predate the fires of Ibis. You can literally see them being enveloped by flame in the cutscene, so they can't have been built to avoid contamination from the fires of Ibis. They might have been built to avoid coral contamination in general before that. And as for who built them, I think
Play some more of these today.
Settlers on Rubicon, either the Rubicon Research Institute, or maybe some population of settlers that split off from the Institute. Whatever the case, now that the corporations have landed, an RLF member has dialogue where she claims the grids won't be safe, which sort of implies that they were a safe place for the RLF before this. At any rate, our first sign that Balam has commandeered the contaminated city comes when you realize that they've just had a new tester AC delivered straight into the heart of the city. This AC uses a Dafeng heavyweight frame, one which emphasizes Dafeng's stout tree, slender branches philosophy. It also has their signature combustion generator equipped as well. But this tester AC also allegedly features extensive assembly optimizations, such as the 12345 booster from RAD, which actually does feature quick boosts that synergize extremely well with this heavy build, but the tester pilot is tragically bad at making use of it. They rarely ever dodge at all. As per the briefing, all of these optimizations allegedly come from an external architect. As for who this external architect is, well, I think it's Allmind, because this exact AC design eventually shows up as one of Allmind's analysis subjects, and in that description, it's stated that Allmind strives to create a future where all mercenaries can enjoy a near symbiotic relationship with their ACs. This is one of Allmind's core goals, programmed into its very being. And while Allmind eventually takes this imperative to an absurd degree, here Allmind is simply providing a new, easy-to-pilot AC to the Red Guns. After all, they have just lost one of their own, G7 Hakra, in their takeover of the contaminated city, so there's an opening for a new pilot.
We're under attack! It must be the locals. No, it's an independent. I'll deal with the merc. I've been training for this. The Red Guns need this AC. I can't fail this mission.
He fails the mission.
I just wanted a call sign of my own.
Taking this job was a very calculated move by Walter. Without this new AC, Balam is more inclined to outsource jobs to independent mercenaries, pilots like you. This next mission is a big one. Attack the dam complex, with a briefing delivered.
Attack the damn complex already, God.
Walter, did ya? Good. Sit your ass down and listen.
So who is Gun 1 Michigan? Well, let's take a look at his arena bio. Commander of the Red Guns, the Balam Group's AC squad, Michigan took up leadership after a career as the commander of the Furlong Armed Fleet. There, he earned a reputation as a merciless, heavy-handed ogre of a man who was equally feared by friend and foe alike, who knew him as Hell on Four Legs. Apparently, he has posted a bounty on his own head to Balam's bounty board, with the stipulation that half of the reward money is to be distributed among his former comrades at Furlong. His AC, Ligertail, is a tetrapod, explaining the Hell on Four Legs nickname. Furthermore, a liger is a real animal. It's the hybrid offspring of a male lion and a female tiger, often believed to be the largest cat in the world. This suits Michigan, for obvious reasons. Unsurprisingly, Michigan is an easy one to pick out in the STV sketches, which are a series of sketches that feature the human side of many characters in-game. Can you spot him? So, we think he's almost certainly this man, given his bulky frame, his commanding pose, and the identity of the man beside him, which we'll get into later. But the most interesting background about Michigan actually doesn't come from his arena bio. Instead, it comes from the arena bio of Gun 6 Red, a member of the Red Guns tasked with managing Balam's use of independent mercenaries on Rubicon. He's the one who has been delivering all of Balam's mission briefings up to this point.
I'll introduce myself. Gun 6 Red. But you can call me sir.
Red's arena bio reads, "As a young boy, Red's life was forever changed when he saw the news broadcasts of Commander Michigan's brutal triumphs in the Jupiter War. Red trained through blood, sweat, and tears in order to emulate his idol, supporting his impoverished siblings all the while. When the Balam admission exam finally came, he won his place in the Red Guns at the very moment he stood to attention to greet the squad." Of course, what's most interesting to learn from this bio is that there was a Jupiter War, and that Commander Michigan, leader of Balam's Red Guns, was victorious in it. We get precious little information about interstellar events, so learning something like this is pretty huge. It might be a stretch to say that Balam is in control of the entirety of Jupiter now, or something like that, but I think it's fair to say that Balam probably has a commanding presence there now, at least. This fact is made even more fascinating when you consider this video record of the fires of Ibis, which muses on Walter's future as he was evacuated off Rubicon as just a young child. It reads, "Whatever future awaits the boy, I hope he grows into a man strong enough to seize it. I have friends in the Jupiter colonies. Surely they will look after him." I mention all of this because I think it's fair to speculate that Commander Michigan was one of these friends tasked with Walter's safekeeping, especially since Michigan is shown to be quite familiar with Walter at numerous points in the game.
Well, Handler Walter. The way your hound's been up in my business, I'm surprised you'd even dare to call. Michigan, about my proposal.
Here, Walter proposes a job with the Red Guns as a shot in the arm for 621, who, like some other 4th gen augmented humans, tends to be emotionally withdrawn. Of course, Walter's real goal here is to convince Balam that you're worth the extra credits, which this job inevitably does, whether you successfully destroy the dam or whether you betray Balam and defend it in New Game Plus.
Balam's moving in on the Gallia Dam complex, one of the Liberation Front's bases. The objective is to destroy their lifeline and make those sacks of shit beg for mercy.
Alongside you for this mission are Gun 4 Volta and Gun 5 Iguazu, and you become the Red Gun's lowest ranking member.
It's a little
receiving a call
weird
sign of
that
13.
A lucky little number that just became available.
The way this is said suggests
I feel
that
like
its
in the
previous
scheme of
owner has
things,
just died.
you
This could be
design
to test
a
AC
core
pilot
from
and
the
complete
legs
this
up,
mission,
not from
or
the
it could
head
be
down.
referring to another pilot that we don't meet, like the one who pilots the Melander AC nicknamed Tenderfoot, for example. As revealed by promotional material, this AC pilot had the Gun 13 call sign and Red Gun customization as well before you did. 13 is an unlucky number to the Red Guns. It's a source of superstition, though The reason for it might actually be quite logical. Because think about it, whoever inherits Gun 13 as their rank is the newest to the Red Guns, and thus their lowest ranking member. So, to me, it makes sense that whichever pilot receives this number is more likely to fall in combat. They're inexperienced, after all.
Whoa. Whoa. What's going on with the lag here?
Commence mission. Attack! Get in there! You maggots!
Great. An independent merc. Who's the wise guy who decided the Red Gun should be taking care of some freelancer?
Oh, it's getting worse. Why is it getting worse?
We'll handle this mission ourselves. One target destroyed.
Hey, freelancer. Bet no one even told you why we're here. Well, us real Red Guns are gonna go climb the wall. This is just target practice. When we're done, the locals' little base is next.
Gun 5. Can't tear yourself away from chatting with a tag-along? Why don't you start a sewing club together and stitch that damn mouth of yours shut?
This is
Classic.
Shut up.
Classic line.
And it's your inexperience, your lack of loyalty to the Red Guns that this enemy RLF member bets on, hoping that they'll be able to sway you, even in the middle of combat.
Independent mercenary. Why be a mere pawn? What honor is there in serving corporations that exist only to kill and plunder? Do you hear me, you corporate vultures? The Rubiconians will never yield. You're going home in armored coffins. Forged in ash, we stand as one! Hot dog, I got an AC.
More like an old piece of junk. It's barely different from an MT. Gun 4. You're not exactly cutting edge either. You want to be next on the scrap heap?
This enemy AC is piloted by Index Dunham. His arena bio reads, a blue-collar worker who was involved in the construction of the grid. He is now dedicated to establishing symbiosis with the coral and building a future for Rubicon free from planetary closure, inspired by Father Dolmayan's ideals. Able-bodied and eager, he is zealously dedicated to the cause, but he is more at home in the construction yard than the cockpit. It's this description of Index Dunham as a loyal worker that helps to identify him in this STV sketch. I think he's pointing towards Father Dolmayan here, as he argues with another man. It's from Dunham's arena bio that we get confirmation that Rubiconians who became RLF members were indeed involved in the construction of the grid way back when. And if they're talking about the original grid, then I guess this would also make him a Cinder, a survivor of the fires of Ibis, though they could also be talking about the more modern grids in this region.
I
But
mean,
if
is
he
that
a Cinder,
is
it
that
suits his flaming
Dark
pickaxe
Souls?
emblem, which also represents his transition from work to warfare, as the pickaxe is a tool that was used for general construction, and in medieval times it historically doubled as a weapon whenever war broke out. This same duality of worker and warrior can be applied to Index Dunham's AC as well, which is also named Burn Pickaxe, and it uses Basho parts and the Joso generator, parts with performance that, I quote, is not dissimilar to generic Labor MT models, which reflects this hasty conversion of Labor MTs into combat ACs that could be used to repel the corporate incursion, where these ACs were based on MTs that were just basically Labor models originally. Unfortunately, Dunham's burning zealotry is not enough to stop Balaam overpowering the RLF here.
Damn you, scavengers! Father Dolmayan, I've failed you!
Confirmed. All targets destroyed. Looks like we got competition.
Index Dunham is so dismayed by the dam's destruction here for a couple of reasons. First, what we're tasked with destroying here are generators. These are what give the Rubiconians power, and likely what keeps them warm. Michigan describes this dam as their lifeline, and it's a grim reminder of the war crimes we're committing, crimes that the game does a good job of distancing you from, but crimes that occur nonetheless. And if you're wondering how
Ooh,
a
we are
frozen dam can generate power, well, first it might not always be frozen all year round, and might generate some hydropower, but the true source of the dam's energy is actually likely to be underground coral. A later combat log titled "The Well Dries" reads, "The well we found in Galia is going to dry up sooner than later. We just can't harvest as much coral as we used to, and what little we do get, the corps squeeze out of us. They know we need it to raise mealworms. How many more children must we watch starve?" So, this reveals that there are subterranean rivers of coral that the Rubiconians tap into for energy, and they use this harvested coral to raise what are called mealworms. We find these mealworms later, creatures that actually manage to feed on the coral, digesting it
Ugh.
before themselves becoming a safe food source for Rubiconians on what is actually an incredibly hostile planet. A later combat log even mentions that these mealworms give Rubiconians a tiny shot of coral when consumed, meaning that every native Rubiconian grows up ingesting coral in some form or another. So, your destruction of the dam threatens the Rubiconians' food supply, unless you betray them and side with the RLF instead in New Game Plus.
Wait, 61. I'm receiving a coded transmission.
Raven, I represent the Rubicon Liberation Front. Our request is simple. We want you to take out the two red guns. Our compensation will be double Balaam's offer, awaiting your response.
Interesting. Your call, 621.
Your cooperation is appreciated, Raven.
621. We've received a friendly ID tag from the Liberation Front. Let's not waste their firepower.
You meant that, didn't you?
This is Volta, Gun 4 of the Red Guns, a fighter who, like Gun 5 Iguazu, seems to have been brought into the Red Guns somewhat against their will. His bio reads, "After beating the rebellious Volta and Iguazu into submission, Michigan made it his personal crusade to make something of the two, and thus began their daily hell. For the past 7 years, neither Volta nor Iguazu have achieved their goal, to punch the living daylights out of Michigan, then get the hell out of the Red Guns, as they would put it. Volta has since admitted defeat, and is now learning about business from
Like something
Wu
between
Huahai, another member of the Red Guns,
bipedal and the
who
reverse.
later.
That's weird.
That's a low blow, Handler Walter. Gun 4, Gun 5, return fire! It looks like Gun 13's playing dirty now! This smirk's something else! Where did Michigan find this freak? Now you've done it, Freelancer. No one picks a fight with the Red Guns. I'm losing control of my machine. No choice but to withdraw.
We think it's most likely that we can see Wu Huahai here in the STV sketch, given that he has dark hair and is clearly of Chinese descent. The AC that they're all sitting upon is Volta's tank AC cannon head, and the others
Oh,
here
they need to
are
get rid of
almost
like
certainly
1,000.
and Volta with Gun 6 red in the distance, but it's hard to say for sure who is Iguazu and who is Volta. This could be Volta because there's money in front of him, and he was said to be learning about business from Wu Huahai, but it could also be Iguazu because Iguazu was a known gambler. Iguazu's bio reads, "Backstreet gambler, Iguazu bet big and lost. and he was forced to undergo experimental 4th-generation augmentation surgery to pay back his debtors. In his new life, he quickly began to quarrel with Volta, his oftentimes partner in crime. Iguazu's recalcitrant nature was such that one day he even picked a fight with the hero of Jupiter, who retaliated with such fury that Iguazu never quite looked the same afterwards. Of course, the hero of Jupiter who punched Iguazu's face in would be Michigan, and Iguazu's face here is blurred out, leaving the damage quite to your imagination.
I'm not taking any more of your shit.
Yeah, okay, Iguazu.
Michigan every day of the week.
As for Iguazu's recalcitrant nature, that's even represented by his choice of emblem, which is a stag beetle, a species known for clashing violently with its peers. Recalcitrant means to have an uncooperative attitude, especially towards authority or discipline, and it's not too surprising that Iguazu has this attitude, thrust as he was into the Red Guns, hardly by choice.
Watch it, freelancer. I'm not going down like Volta. I'm gonna punch the living daylights out of Michigan, and no one's stopping me.
Iguazu's gambling debts leading to his augmentation echoes the Human Plus system from previous Armored Core games, where you could reach a state of debt so severe that your body was offered to an experimental augmentation program. After this, your debts were cleared, and you received enhanced abilities. The fact that experimental augmentation can work a similar way in AC6, with Iguazu here getting a new life after his surgery, offers a rare insight into what our past as 621 might have been like. Of course, we can only speculate on the details, but Iguazu,
not bad,
like
actually.
us, is also a 4th-generation augmented human, and it's possible that Iguazu was bought and paid for after his surgery by Michigan in a similar way to how 621 was with Walter. We've previously established that Walter and Michigan were likely to have ties to the Rubicon Research Institute, and maybe they share a source of 4th-gen augmented human stock as well. Not to mention, the fact that Walter has the word handler as a title suggests that there are other handlers of augmented humans out there, and that buying and paying for augmented human lives is a firmly established thing in this universe.
Damn it! I've been hit bad. Freelancer got lucky.
Confirmed. Gun 4 and Gun 5 eliminated. You can bill me for the AC repair fees, Michigan.
You've ruined our little field trip, Walter. Tuition fees too.
Another thing worth mentioning early is that despite their ACs being destroyed in this mission, Iguazu and Volta aren't dead. Instead, they've withdrawn from their ACs, which is a handy plot device that Armored Core 6 uses whenever it needs you to defeat ACs but keep their pilots alive. Presumably, similar to in Armored Core 5, the pilots have ejected to be safely picked up later by their own organization.
Your cooperation is appreciated, Raven.
Though they're never named, these
Okay,
are
let's see what this thing does.
Middle Flatwell. He's the de facto military leader of the Rubicon Liberation Front, and he's the one who's offering you the job to double-cross Balin. Flatwell is likely to be this man in the STV sketch, engaged in argument with X-Dunn, who earlier we established is more loyal to Father Lion, so it kind of makes sense that these two clash. The rest of Middle Flatwell's army means his authority is second only to that of Father Lion, and his standing within the organization has earned him an informal title as Fellow Father, who is the uncle of the Liberation Front to Don Marius' father. In addition to the familial titles of uncle and father, 5 members of the Pilot are also
Holy
These are
shit,
Little,
this thing fucking...
Middle, Index, and Thumb, belonging to Little Zee, Ring Freddy, Middle Flatwell, Index Dunham, and Thumb Dolmayan. Together, they make the full fist of the RLF, united against the extraplanetary corporations.
Got a job for you, 621.
This thing's just weird.
Raven, this request comes from Schneider, an Archivist subsidiary. The mission will take place in the Bonadea dunes of Western Belius. Our coral investigation there is being blocked by the Strider, a Rubicon Liberation Front mining ship. You are to destroy it.
In the earliest leaks of Armored Core 6, the coral was called Melange, the same name given to the spice in Frank Herbert's Dune, which Armored Core 6 seems somewhat inspired by. And if the coral was Melange, then the Rubiconians would be the Fremen, a people that are hardened by strife and emboldened by their familiarity with their planet's most valuable resource. There's a lot of parallels.
An unidentified AC. Must be one of the corporation's dogs. Activate the eye. Burn them away. Yes, sir! Coral, abide with Rubicon! Abide with Rubicon.
Even the Rubiconians' logo reminds me of the Fremen of Dune, and we first see this logo here on the side of the Strider in the next mission, which is this arms fort that was once merely a ship used to mine coal, except now it's been weaponized. This logo, though, it's infused with some serious symbolism.
The Strider is the flagship of our war. Hold the line. Defend the ship with your lives.
I don't care about the big plan.
We can't shake the enemy AC! Remember the hardships that made us. Remember that when Rubicon burns, we endure.
Now that the dam is destroyed, the Strider will be crucial to the Order, as it's a way for them to travel around Belius, mining coal, distributing it elsewhere, and controlling their own destiny.
No. We can't lose the Strider. Sir, no response to the eye. Damn hyena. Damaging the planet. Oh, abide with Rubicon.
Sure would be nice if you could help the RLF and help them keep this ship around, but alas, it's either destroyed by you or destroyed in New Game Plus Plus by a foreign force if you attempt to escort it instead. According to this New Game Plus Plus mission, the RLF paid another Rubiconian force, the Doses, to outfit the Strider for combat. This included attaching all of the weapons turrets, as well as attaching an enormous energy laser quite similar to the closure system, actually, which makes me wonder if there's a story there or if this is just coincidence. At any rate, the RLF need these weapons attached because, once again, the corporations are intent on coral survey in their territory, this time in the Bonadea dunes, which, again, have water on their surface, so presumably there is coral beneath these dunes, especially since the mining ship is in this location. But the most curious part of this mission by far is the New Game Plus Plus variant of it, where you're given the option to support the thing.
My sword's better!
It gets taken down by foreign forces.
Hold the line. We are full warriors.
Enemies on the radar.
It's resonating.
621, they're coming.
Interference. I'm losing sync.
Defend yourself, 621. They're not going to listen to reason. Those are drone weapons made by the Rubicon Research Institute. Relics that survived the fires of Ibis.
This moment is kind of bizarre, because despite Walter later telling you he'll look into this, we never get a follow-up on why these machines attacked here, forcing us to try and puzzle it out ourselves. So these are drone weapons left over from the Rubicon Research Institute. One set are Helianthus machines, Sunflower,
Ah, fucking.
like amazing name, and the other set are MT-like drones that you eventually find in a state of disrepair around Institute City, which is an underground city on an entirely different continent. Specifically, these are all sea weapons. They're autonomous deterrents created by the RRI to protect the coral. So, following on from that, it's logical to think that these weapons might just be defending the coral against the RRI who might have been mining it, and maybe they just accidentally triggered these sea weapons lying in wait beneath the ground. However, it's kind of strange to think that the Rubicon Research Institute would have planted sea weapons here on a different continent so far away from Institute City. It's also kind of strange to think that the RLF would just randomly trigger them now while they're mining here, uncovering relics that clearly didn't even know existed. Alternatively, you could theorize that the PCA sent these weapons to suppress the RLF. The PCA do commandeer other Institute relics, after all. You could even theorize that Orla is behind this attack, since she has a vested interest in seeing Arcus succeed in this mission. In the end, though, I don't think it's possible to know for sure what's happening.
Looks like the last of them. Nothing on the long-range radar. You may have failed to protect the Strider, but you had a hell of an excuse. Oh, Chris. You go home and get some rest, sister.
Regardless, this mission gets you a foot in the door for Operation Wallclimb, led by Arcus.
I understand you want to join Operation Wall Climb, right? You do realize that smashing up some old Institute relics hardly qualifies you.
No one can stop you now.
Commence mission. We'll start by clearing the way for Arquebus. Take out the Gatling cannons protecting the city, and the Bowster Pod MT further in.
Dispose of them, Iguazu.
You'll never climb the wall, corporation.
I can't believe you still got hit by that.
Coral, abide with Rubicon.
We're under attack. You're in the city.
Just 1AC. Archibus. They're mocking us. Force in act. We stand as one. Die, mercenary!
It's resonating.
Ow!
Bowster Pod MT.
Unlike other missions up until this point, Wall isn't important because it's a part of the Coral Survey. It's important because it's a key trading outpost, presumably with the infrastructure from which Coral surveys can be launched, and naturally taking the Wall strikes a blow against the RLF, who use it to supply. Balin, as is their style, rush in headfirst to take the Wall, sending Iguazu and Volta on what Volta describes as a suicide mission. However, Iguazu chooses this method to go AWOL, leaving his partner Volta to attempt the wall climb.
Oh, I'm failing already.
In front of the wall is a video with an incomplete message sent from Volta to Iguazu, apparently just before death. It says, Iguazu, I'm telling you, you gotta give Michigan another chance. He's different from the suits at HQ. Look, I know he's an asshole. He's looking out for us, you know? Almost like we're a family. And if it's anyone who deserves punching out, it's the freaks who sent us on this suicide mission. Picked a good day to go AWOL. Wish I...
You killed me. Not just once.
So this log tells us a few things. First, that it was the suits at HQ that demanded this mission, not Michigan himself. It's a good reminder that even though people like Michigan and Snail are the leaders of the combat teams here on Rubicon, they're actually not the highest ranking members of Balin and Arquebus. They're the ones calling the shots, presumably somewhere safe off-planet, where the guns see. The second thing that's curious is why Iguazu went AWOL. In the previous mission, Iguazu bragged about being first over the wall. So what changed? If I had to guess, I'd say Michigan is to blame somewhat. This record reads as if something had just happened between Michigan and Iguazu, with Volta pleading with Iguazu to give Michigan a chance. Presumably, Iguazu is fuming about getting chewed out by Michigan during or after the damn mission, and he deserts the Red Guns for a while. The sad thing is that Iguazu and Volta work very well as a team, and this desertion might have direct
Ooh.
What's more, Volta is right. Michigan does look out for Guasu. In a later mission, when another Balin member references Guasu's desertion here, Michigan defends him.
Oh yeah, the deserter who kicked his pants and ran.
Oh, but hey, I forgot we still kept you around. Every Guasu's worth 100 of you, which means, Albany, the merc is worth 20 I am. I feel you're doing nothing productive. Why don't you do the math for us? It's just you and me.
Answer 2000 Albany, sir!
Enough about Balin's red guards. What about Arcabus's Vespers? The word Vesper means evening, as reflected on their emblem. There are 8 Vespers, and as suggested by the briefing in this mission, each Vesper leads their own squad of Arquebus forces, though we never really get to see the forces they lead. Each Vesper also has an emblem that is some anatomical play on the augmented human body, except for Rusty, whose is a muzzled wolf.
Raven.
It's the first of many things that set Rusty apart, since he's not a true Vesper. Instead, he's secretly allied with the RLF, so I don't care about the big plan. Arquebus's plans.
I just want that damn freelancer dead. Do you read me? This is V4 Rusty. You're fast. Guess you're sharper than they say. I'll have to step up my own game.
A numbered Vesper is elite. But remember, even Balin couldn't crack the wall. Don't count on him too much.
Freelancer. You killed me. Not just once. Well, there's a whole lot of us inside of me now.
You must be Raven.
Grudge.
Oh my god.
The infamous handler Walter's hounds.
This body won't last.
Interesting.
Yes, it's time.
You ready to climb the wall?
Interesting that Handler Walter is called Infamous here. It makes you wonder what his other hounds' jobs have been before Rubicon, and what he did to turn the situation.
That's the Juggernaut, a heavy mobile cannon. I wouldn't recommend taking it head on. That's the stuff. Walter knows how to pick 'em. Watch out. He's coming along.
I'll kill you and the
Ed
freelancer.
won't be able to keep up with Steel Haze. I'll distract him while you hit his blind spot.
Stay focused, 16. Confirmed. Juggernaut destroyed. Operation Wall Climber is a success.
So that's how a hound fights.
Dispose of
I'll
them.
take care of mopping up the remaining hostiles. Luck, maybe we'll meet again.
Iguazu.
We're war buddies now. I think I should tell you something. During Operation Wall
Stop
Climber,
now.
Arquebus was planning to sacrifice you. The plan was to use independent mercenaries to clear the way so that the Vespers could step in and take over. But instead, you took the wall. The higher-ups are going to remember you now, that's for sure. As will I.
As a double agent, Rusty is forced to do some very difficult things, especially in the lead-up to this appearance in Operation Warline, where Rusty is instructed to clear up RLF forces, the very people whose cause he secretly fights for, and afterwards, in Retrieve Combat Logs, we investigate Rusty's actions before the
A
war,
little
which
squishy with not
reveals a
enough.
wealth of information.
Search the nearby wrecks for combat logs recording engagements with V4 Rusty. That's what we're looking for, 621. I'll analyze it on my end.
Many members of the RLF have craft that have been destroyed here, with some even triggering their emergency eject levers as soon as they engage Rusty. Perhaps they recognize him and decide to get out quick, but not all of them would have known what was going on here, because at least one of these tragic logs comes in the form of a video record of a fallen RLF pilot who does recognize Rusty, but doesn't understand why they've turned on the RLF here. They say, "I know you, I've seen Uncle's files," referring to the files of Uncle Flatwell, who is second in command in the RLF. The last part of Flatwell's bio reads, "For a time, Flatwell worked as a spy within the extraplanetary corporations and has sway over a rather significant contact in Schneider's HR department." So, like Rusty, Flatwell was also able to infiltrate the extraplanetary corporations. And while Rusty infiltrated the Vespers, who are part of Arquebus, Flatwell infiltrated Schneider, who have Arquebus as their parent company. And the fact that Flatwell managed to infiltrate an extraplanetary corporation makes me wonder, because does that imply that he escaped from Rubicon before the fires of Ibis and then infiltrated, or does it suggest that he's not even Rubiconian at all? At any rate, he's not a spy for Arquebus anymore, but he does still have an influential contact within Schneider and continues to hold sway with them, which leads me to my next theory, which is that I wonder, did Rusty manage to infiltrate Arquebus through this same contact with Schneider? After all, his arena bio reveals that he was discovered through the recruitment program operated by Schneider, an Arquebus affiliate, and goes on to state, Rusty so quickly distinguished himself that he was selected to join the upper echelons of Vespers in less than half a year. Rusty received augmentation surgery prior to joining the Vespers, and though the precise details are unclear, he has declared himself to be of the 8th generation. The wording here of Rusty declaring himself to be of the 8th generation makes it pretty clear that he's not really of 8th generation augmentation. If I had to guess, Rusty probably declared himself as an 8th gen because this is one of the most advanced generations of augmentation, and perhaps he thought having this would help ingratiate himself with his fellow Vespers, who are themselves all products of modern augmentation. We also speculate that this is Rusty in the STK sketches, the man making a strong effort to buddy up to his fellow Vespers. What's most suspect with Rusty are the precise details behind his true prior augmentation surgery. Augmentation isn't exactly an easy thing to get. It's not cheap, and it's not particularly widely practiced either. I don't even think there's any evidence that any Balaam members are augmented, except for Iguazu. So either Rusty is an old-gen augment without any issues with his humanity, or he's a modern augment from a source he doesn't want to disclose, or perhaps he's not an augmented human at all. What do you think? Another thing we discover about Rusty in this mission is that he doesn't use the laser weaponry that other Vespers typically use. Instead, he favors kinetic weaponry, of the sort the RLF prefer in battle. To me, this suggests that he has prior experience with this weaponry, otherwise you'd think he would just take up the laser weapons, right? I like the idea that Rusty is secretly Rubiconian because of this, as all of the Rubiconians prefer these weapons, but this is just my own speculation. Rusty's biggest secret on Rubicon is hidden in this last log, encoded comms, which reveal Rusty was communicating with the RLF here, even as he took them out. The lines are interrupted, but I'm going to try and fill in the gaps, since I now know what these communications are referring to. It should read something like, "When the time comes, Furlong will assist with the technology stolen by Elcano. You must keep the AC hidden until then." This log reveals Rusty's plans within Arquebus. He and Uncle Flatwell are conspiring with a set of other smaller corporations to develop an AC that will outmatch anything Arquebus has to offer. But I'll talk about this more as the story progresses. For now, just know that Rusty is trying to tell the RLF to be patient until the time is right to reveal their secret weapon. Some of the RLF present at the wall anticipate an attack from the Vespers. Friendly comms from before the start of their mission reveal as much, with RLF members stating, "We can't beat the top Vespers, we're as good as dead. At least Ziyi is off duty. She's the Liberation Front's little sister. She doesn't deserve to be out there on the battlefield. She can still love and be loved, have a family." The reason the RLF fear they can't beat the top Vespers comes back to this technological gap that they have compared to the corporations. Many of their Baus AC parts, like the Yaba generator, for example, had development that was aimed at narrowing Rubicon's post-closure technological gap, a period where the native Rubiconians were hurrying to improve their combat forces to the point where they could compete with whatever the corporations would eventually return with. And so they really do need this secret weapon AC that Rusty and the other corporations are conspiring to develop, because the RLF are largely held back by their outdated ACs, many of which fight without even a full set of weapons. Take Little Ziyi's AC UAU, for example. She arrives towards the end of this mission, coming to the battlefield late. She was off duty, but perhaps she heard about what was transpiring here and came as quickly as she could.
You, AC pilot. You're no comrade of ours, are you? Wait, you killed them all!
Ziyi's arena bio reads, a warrior of the Rubicon Liberation Front. As an infant, Ziyi was taken to Rubicon by her parents, who, tempted by the promise of riches from coral mining, sought to make an illegal entry to the planet. Only Ziyi survived the crash landing. She came under the guardianship of Uncle Flatwell of the Rubicon Liberation Front, and the core of an AC was the young orphan's cradle as she grew up to become a coral warrior.
I'm a coral warrior, just like the others, and I will not give in! Forged in ash, we stand as one! Shameless! Corporate dog! Go! Leave Rubicon
Final
alone!
arena combat aptitude
Perhaps
evaluation
this is
program.
why Little Z's emblem is a fish out of water. She was an off-worlder, and her dialogue reveals her desperately striving to fit in as one of them, despite her fellow Rubiconians worrying about her constantly.
We're not like you, a greedy hound! I'm sorry, Arshil. I couldn't keep my promise.
Confirmed. Enemy AC destroyed. Get back to work, 621.
Z's death dialogue mentions someone called Arshil, who she apparently promised to. Arshil's identity is never made clear in-game, but we can figure out who he is thanks to Armored Core's voice actor credits. Turns out Arshil is the nameless RLF who gives you most of their mission briefings.
Raven, here's an operation that may be of interest to you.
So,
Bruh, how are you gonna have multiples of those?
an ultimate mission to retrieve combat logs, plus asking you to engage in a prisoner rescue mission. Instead, one of these prisoners is Z, who Arshil eventually thanks you very personally for saving.
Raven, there's the mission I'd like you to take on. We have authorized a solo helicopter sortie to rescue a group of imprisoned comrades. There are 3 to rescue in total, including some particularly significant personnel.
Now, this mission only appears if you sided with the RLF at the dam and betrayed Balaam there. As a result, Balaam don't offer you the mission to retrieve Rusty's combat logs. Instead, they take punitive action against the RLF, capturing 3 of their key personnel at this stage of the game, including Little Ziyi, who doesn't seem to get captured in the original timeline. It's this mission that reveals Balaam has taken full control of the contaminated city. Here, they extract information from at least 3 prominent RLF members, Comrade Messam, Little Ziyi, and Thumb Dolmayan.
We appreciate your support, Raven. We have to rescue our captured comrades. Failure is not an
Oops,
option.
all missiles.
Coral, abide with Rubicon.
We're under attack! It's a Liberation Front chopper and an escort AC!
No, no, I'm not liking the.
Focus on the chopper! Shoot it down! Don't let them go! We need their intel on the wells!
It's revealed that Balaam's interrogation is attempting to discern the location of the RLF's coral wells, and Based on the state of little Z when she's extracted, this interrogation likely extends to torture.
You came for me.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Ziggy.
I'm okay. Still alive, at least. A little rest, and I'll pay him back.
Heading to the next site, Raven. Keep us covered.
Not to mention, Comrade Messam is actually dead as a result of the interrogation.
We've extracted Comrade Messam, but we were too late.
Damn it.
Main system
Not
activating
Messam.
combat mode.
Heading to the last site. Just a little more, Raven.
Oh, you little shit fuck.
Damn, but because you betrayed Balaam, they didn't get to discover this information in this timeline. Hence, the interrogation.
The coral wells are the Rubiconians' lifeline. You must have refused to talk.
Lastly, this mission is the earliest 621 can get involved. The man behind the founding ideas of the Rubicon Liberation.
Father Defiant has been extracted.
So tell me,
Thank goodness you're safe, Father.
Iguazu.
Coral abide with Rubicon.
You don't know what you're saying, girl. There'll be nothing left but dying embers.
Here, we see an example of Father Dolmayan's wavering faith in his own beliefs. Fears rising to the surface here, perhaps thanks to Balaam's interrogation. Dolmayan's arena bio reads, Father of the Rubicon Liberation Front, veteran military commander, and founder of the School for Coral Mysticism. As a young man, Dolmayan was once in the Vagrant, taken to the fires of Atlas, burned in the star system. In the fire's aftermath, he developed an ardent belief in symbiosis. This belief informed the founding ideals of the Rubicon Liberation Front, ideals that have made martyrs of countless coral minds. Dolmayan's idea of symbiosis with the coral is that of a doser, someone who takes Rubicon's blessings raw and imbibes the coral to it. But this dosing is not true symbiosis with the coral, and Dolmayan himself knows this. True symbiosis is something that even Dolmayan feels, but we'll discuss that point a little bit later on. Before the end of this mission, we'll meet one more partner of AM's group. This man here has Michigan's ear and a folder and gun to
61. New enemy confirmed.
That's a Red Gun's AC.
Interference. I'm losing sync.
Escorting a Primogen break all along.
I can't fight
Derek,
anymore.
give you that.
They're gone.
I've fried bigger fish than you.
Stupid voices.
That's Gun 2 Nile,
I feel
the Red Gun's deputy commander, and the brains to Michigan's muscle.
Gun 2 Niles Arena Bio reads Deputy Commander of Red Guns, Balaam Group AC Squad, formerly the commander of the Balaam Security Force, a paramilitary police organization that preceded the
You were
formation
a
of the Red
mistake,
Guns.
Iguazu.
Nile distinguished himself with an exceptionally high arrest rate. In those days, the only man who ever managed to put in handcuffs was Michigan, then in command of the rival Furlong Armed. Having failed to arrest the man, he instead settled for a friendly
now's your chance.
with his own nemesis. This is extremely revealing. We learn that Red Guns were preceded by a paramilitary force. We learn that Michigan was the command of the Furlong Armed fleet during those days. So Michigan rivaled Balaam before coming up on their side. Perhaps it was even this friendly gentleman of Nile who preceded him joining
this
them
goes.
and forming the Red
This is
Guns.
where that grit of yours kicks in.
Oh yeah.
No wonder Michigan took a shine to you. Confirmed. Gun 2 Nile is down. A symbol of resolve. But mark my words, there will be nothing left but dying embers.
Yeah. Okay, bruh.
Let me thank you again, Raven.
bring this full circle, this man speaking here is Arshiel, who shares this deeper relationship with ZE, and it's thanks to us that ZE lives on, in this timeline at least. There's just one more log to discuss from the mission to retrieve the combat logs, a video record recovered from a wreck stationed at Baus Arsenal. It seems this craft was once stationed at Baus Arsenal No. 2. At first glance, the recovered image depicts nothing out of the ordinary. However, on closer inspection, one can identify noise in one corner of the picture, indicative of digital interference, potentially an effect of monitor display deception jamming. Indeed, there is something hiding in this video record, and this video record is foreshadowing for something that's about to happen at the Arsenal. Eventually, the RLF calls on us to get to the bottom of things.
I want you to investigate Baus Arsenal No. 2, a major MT factory in the Belius region. The Baus Corporation sells to anyone, but they've been essential to maintaining our firepower. Now, their second arsenal has gone silent overnight.
I've been checking the perimeter, and I'm picking up nothing. What happened here? Mech. I can't see it. Handle it, 621. 621. Watch its shots and see where they're coming from. Of course. MDD. Stick to it like glue. Unidentified machine down. Get back to work, 621. MDD. Encoded comms. Was that mech behind what happened here?
Soon enough, we realized that the hostile mechs here are using MDD, the same monitor display deception noted in this video record. With this, they were able to overrun Baus without leaving a single trace. So, who are the Baus Corporation? The word Baus stands for Belius Applied Weapon Systems, revealing that they primarily operate on this continent. Baus's multiple arsenals are essential to the war efforts of pretty much everyone, as they produce the MTs and quadruped MTs that you encounter throughout the game. MT stands for muscle units, referring to the way that MTs are piloted by tracking the muscle movements of the human pilot within. This rudimentary control method is nowhere near as advanced to the neurological control that AC pilots, especially augmented ones, have over their ACs. But muscle tracing is likely much easier to use for the average person, and thus it's widely used across Rubicon, and most enemies we encounter are MT units. The reason Baus and their MTs are so essential comes back again to the idea that access to Rubicon has been difficult for the corporations. Arquebus and Balaam are corporations the size of countries, maybe even planets, and yet they were only able to get a fraction of their power onto Rubicon, partly because of the PCA, though this could also be explained if we assume interstellar travel is just slow and or difficult in unequal settings. Whatever the case, Baus are an established production force on the planet, and thus its Baus MTs are extremely desirable for every player in this war. That said, there's some evidence to suggest that Baus are on the side of the Rubiconians and the RLF, and it's difficult to imagine that they wouldn't be on the Rubiconian side. They are a corporation native to Rubicon, after all, one that might have even existed before the fires of Ibis. Our best piece of evidence for Baus's true allegiance is this record of a Baus guard's last words, recorded right before they were shot dead by an unknown aggressor. Their log here in this mission reads, "You're just on edge, man. Baus supplies MTs to the off-world corps, too. No one would ever touch this arsenal. Gotta move as many units as we can.
We need
to
different
back
missiles.
Volcano. That's the only way we Rubiconians stand it." What was that? The connections? Yeah. So this guard was basically saying that Baus is untouchable because they're playing it neutral between all the hostile forces. And if you're wondering why Baus doesn't just side with RLF against the corporations, Well, I think that's because going down that route might not really achieve anything in the long run. The corporations aren't going to stop assaulting Rubicon until they get the coral, and Baus only has the numerical advantage here. They don't have the tech advantage. As echoed by a lot of their part descriptions, Baus is primarily concerned with closing the post-closure technological gap, and for that, they need the knowledge gained from the extraplanetary corporations. So they partnered with Elcano, who, according to Steelhaze's AC data, have stolen Archivist technology and used it to develop a new model. And Baus are funneling credits to Elcano so that Elcano can bankroll this new tech with an absurd amount of cash. So, who are Elcano? Well, their logo is included on this graphic describing the qualities of a Rubiconian AC, so they're clearly a Rubiconian corporation. As for the parts they're known for, well, Elcano have their roots in producing and forging steel, allowing for parts that are strong but light and agile, traits only enhanced by the fact they've been copying Schneider's work as well, since Schneider are also known for aerodynamic ACs. All of this is helping them to create a unit that's perfect for Rusty, who favors these kinds of agile craft. After this tech is perfected, I assume their endgame is to bet on the Rubiconians, who are really only held back by their outdated tech. And if their tech improves, Baus and the Rubiconians and Elcano could conceivably become a force greater than all of the corporations combined, finally able to defend their planet from the outsiders and free it from the PCA as well.
For this job, 621. According to the blueprint, there's a massive water reservoir deep inside the arsenal. If there's anything waiting for us, that's where it'll be. Is that a coral response? 621, get down and take a closer look.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, Baus, being Rubiconians, secretly have control of a coral well at their arsenal.
Baus was hiding a well all this time. 621, above you. You're outnumbered. Pick them off one by one, 621. Seems that's the last of them. This wasn't a simple check-in after all. Head back and rest up, 621.
And if you're asking why the PCA doesn't just take over Baus to stop all of the corporations from buying all their firepower, well, they actually do kind of try to at this time, with a mandatory inspection in an alternate mission here. Indeed, it's quite convenient for the PCA to launch such an attack. They actually have a watch point right next door, if you look at the map. This fact also conveniently explains why Baus is able to set up a coral well in this arsenal. The arsenal is located right next to the watch point, and there's definitely coral beneath the watch point. Independent mercenaries have started to notice PCA's inspectors moving as well, with a comms record at the nearby watch point reading, "Looks like the PCA inspectors are on the move. Make sure the 4 know." As for the other corps, well, Melonite and Takagawa don't seem too ambitious. All they care about is selling their products. Furlong, though, they're pretending to be neutral, but you know those crafty foxes would never make a move out in the open. So to quickly break that down, the 4 are the 4 big corporations: Balaam, Darfang, Arquebus, and Schneider. As for the other corporations, Melonite simply engineer a set of grenade cannons, and Takigawa are simply known for their pulse tech, but Furlong are indeed collaborating on the production of the RLF's secret AC project, so they are indeed crafty foxes, though on the surface they simply appear to be missile specialists. Anyway, according to the New Game Plus Plus mission briefing, Baus intend to disrupt this PCA inspection with a raid by independent mercenaries. But this New Game Plus mission is given to us from All Mind, not Baus, and As we soon learn in either mission, Baus probably aren't exactly in control here anymore. Instead, their facility has been completely taken over by Allmind, Kate Markson, and her MDD ghosts.
My name is Kate Markson. I have a special request to ask of you. It concerns the elimination of PCA mandatory inspection squads dispatched to Baus Arsenal Number 2. I need you to lie in wait inside the arsenal and ambush the Vanguard squad. I'll disrupt their rearguard squad outside, then rendezvous with you.
So this is Kate Markson, and she's totally a human. She's got a human name and lots of very human qualities as well. Yeah, no, it's Allmind. And if it's not Allmind, then it's an AI that's sympathetic with her, at least.
Get their attention. Commence mission. Eliminate the PCA's mandatory inspection squads.
I'm grateful for your support, Raven. We'll rendezvous later on.
Code 1-5. Unknown AC.
I was right to count on the wall climber. Keep up the good work.
Wipe out the Dafag. I looked into this Kate. She's not even registered in the arena.
In a world filled with names like Iguazu and Dolmayan, who chooses Kate Markson as their name? Like, really? What's more, Kate's AC is named Transcriber, and its emblem is designed to look like a fountain pen, which is a reference to Allmind's innate desire to transcribe everything she learns from other ACs into her own development plans. Granted, she might have got away with this reference, but her emblem and AC are colored in the Allmind colors as well, so yeah. Kate's AC is using Allmind's Mind Beta, whose arena model reveals it to feature an AI that benefits from the breadth of Allmind's research archives. Allmind anticipates that this new model, Mind Beta, can autonomously operate in actual combat at the same level as a highly skilled mercenary. And, ominously, it's this exact model that can actually be seen in the background of the Baus Guard's last words here as well, suggesting that Kate was the vanguard sent in first. As for whether these ghost units are affiliated with Allmind as well, they are. They show up everywhere that Allmind is involved, and their stealth complements her surreptitious tactics throughout the story. So in your first playthrough, you act on behalf of the RLF to try and figure out what happened at the arsenal. But in New Game Plus Plus, you get to see what happens from
Fucking
Allmind's
hole in the ground.
at a point where she's already taken over the arsenal, where she wants to ward off PCA's incursion with mechs instead. Now, Allmind probably could have resisted the PCA with her ghost units, but that would have looked suspicious. Instead, by using ACs like Kate Markson and hired independent mercenaries like you, she can pretend to be defending against them on behalf of Baus.
Raven, I've finished mopping up, but I have something to report. The PCA has made an unexpected move. Let's rendezvous for now.
You heard the lady. Updating marker data.
As much as I'd love to stop and chat, I'm afraid we're rather pressed for time.
A side effect of this mission is that it's revealed to Walter and 621 much earlier that the PCA's suppression fleet is on its way to Rubicon.
Attending scene. We've got a 3-1C on our hands.
We've lost the inspection team. Merck's made a big mistake.
System authorization received. Commencing termination.
This isn't Subject Guard that's fighting here. Instead, these are the PCA's special forces.
Their suppression fleet is coming to Rubicon. These are just the Outriders.
621. There's no avoiding this encounter now. Wipe them out.
For now, though, these are just their Outriders. A set of Ectremoi, which is a name from Greek antiquity which means outrunners, and the Cataphract also shows up. And the name Cataphract means armored or completely enclosed. Well, except for the giant obvious weak spots that they probably
the
think
front.
no one would be dumb enough to approach head-on. Except a Hound, of course.
Code 31C. Sustaining heavy fire. Damn it!
The fucking chainsaw.
It really is racing.
Confirmed. All Special Forces craft destroyed. We're done here, 621.
Excellent work, Raven. You've shown me a thing or two.
617 also defeated a Cataphract, as well as other PCA forces besides in the story trailer. And you'd think that now that AC6 is out, that we'd know why 617 and 619 and 620 were fighting against the PCA here, right? But we don't. Our only clue, really, comes at the end of this mission, where Walter contacts Carla, another member of Overseer, who wants to burn the coral.
Long time no see, Walter. Looking good for a change. I see you've got a new augmented human.
You've got ID.
What happened to 617 and the rest?
Their jobs. They did what it took to get us here.
This at least tells us that whatever 617 and the other Hounds achieved, it was a part of what got us onto Rubicon in the first place. Maybe Walter was raiding a PCA base in order to hack them for information, or to install a backdoor into PCA systems. 617 and the others could have even been a part of Branch's plan to punch a hole in the closure system. We just can't say for sure. Anyway, after this dialogue from Walter, we get dialogue from Carla that leads into the Watchpoint. If you investigate Baus Arsenal number 2 and defeat Allmind's ghosts, Carla hacks into them, calling them friends sarcastically.
I found the data our friends left behind. There's something promising at the watch point.
But if you obstruct the mandatory inspection and side with Kate Markson instead, that's how you learn about the Watchpoint instead.
But we've run into someone shady.
Someone you want me to look into.
Yeah. Independent mercenary. Goes by Keat.
Either way, it's Allmind who leads you here, so I think it's fitting, then, that we discuss Allmind's goal here at the Watchpoint, a place that she is also extremely interested in.
This is a rather personal request. From a friend of mine. I'm picking up new it concerns a certain facility. A watch point. Once, it regulated the underground flow of coral. Now it serves to monitor the dormant veins. I want you to attack it.
It's hard to say exactly what Walter hopes to achieve by destroying the Watchpoint's sensor, but Carla has figured out that there's something promising at the Watchpoint, and my best guess is just that Walter's more than happy to let Carla dig around there after 621 renders the place obsolete and deals this huge blow to the PCA. However, in a lucky coincidence, destroying the sensor actually causes an unexpected coral surge, and monitoring its directionality is actually what leads Walter and all of the corporations to the true source of the coral. It's also the moment where we get a friendly little wave mutation in our head. Air.
Code 1-5. Intruder sighted.
It's just one AC. Who are they with?
We can look into that later. Engaging.
The reason the Corps don't want to attack the Watchpoint for information is that it would be seen as a grave declaration of war and a severe escalation, and if Balaam or Arquebus earned the ire of the PCA this early on, it could put one of them at a severe disadvantage compared to the other. But as an independent mercenary, we're able to go. A fact that explains why we find the wrecks of some independent mercenaries here as well. The most interesting wreck here, however, is this, one of Allmind's ghosts, carrying an extremely important piece of data. It reads, "A wave mutation has been detected. It's happening. The aging mercenary is the ideal candidate to serve as the trigger. We must now bring the third factor into play." It's at this point that we should speak very openly about what Allmind's plans are, and how she intends to achieve them, at this early stage of the game, at least. So I'll explain her plans, and then I'll come back and explain this dialogue. Many times in New Game Plus Plus, you'll hear All Mind refer to the project. The project, put simply, is to achieve something called Coral Release. So what is Coral Release? Well, long ago, researchers at the Rubicon Research Institute discovered that coral could self-propagate, and that the speed at which it multiplies was determined by the density of the coral colony. Thus, if coral was allowed to grow inside of a vacuum, coral density would be maximized, so would grow. However, what they also discovered was that the coral would begin to mutate in these dense conditions, and they feared that these mutations would bring about a coral collapse, followed by a coral release, a phenomena I think we observe in the third ending of Armored Core 6, where the collected coral becomes so dense that it collapses in on itself before being triggered to release and spread throughout the universe. In this ending, coral and humanity are able to achieve a deeper symbiosis. This is seen as a good thing by some, though the word collapse could also be referring to the heralded collapse of human civilization that this event would represent. Logs reveal that All Mind has identified 3 main factors required for her to achieve coral release: a primary factor, a secondary factor, and a third factor. She's never clear about what these factors are, but we can kind of puzzle them out by looking at the context in which they're mentioned. Her primary factor is mentioned here, where All Mind notes that she has to wait for Arquebus to put the primary factor for the project in place. This one's pretty clear. She kind of has to be talking about the vascular plant, which needs to be found and then repaired by Arquebus ideally, so that it can start sucking up the coral
that's
atmosphere. As for why she's chosen Arquebus, in later missions it's revealed that All Mind has infiltrated Arquebus to a large degree, and I think Arquebus just has the capacity to repair the vascular plant more so than Balin does. All Mind's secondary factor is mentioned in the context of destroying this machine, HAL 826. This is the AC that Walter eventually pilots, and All Mind needs it to be destroyed by her secondary factor. As far as I can tell, the secondary factor is just any pilot she can wield as a weapon to further her goals. I personally think that at one point it's Kate Markson, then another point it's us, and then eventually it's Iguazu. This same dialogue refers to the pilot of HAL 826 as that man. Given Walter becomes HAL 826's pilot, she's almost certainly talking about Handler Walter here, since she later calls him a hindrance to the project. She complains that he has greatly delayed our efforts to put the third factor in place. So, what is the third factor? Well, it's actually pretty obvious. It's either a coral wave mutation or a wave mutation integrated with an augmented human. As we learned from an earlier log, the coral density effect creates wave mutations, which lead to coral collapse and coral release. Thus, All Mind needs a wave mutation, the third and final factor, to trigger coral release. This third factor is mentioned here in the observation data found at the watch point, and here All Mind has detected a wave mutation, and she has an aging mercenary who is the ideal candidate to serve as the trigger for her plan of coral release. This aging mercenary is C1249 Sula.
You see that? That's the Watchpoint's control center. The target's inside. Make your way in. Got the tetrapod, huh? You're unnatural at this, 621.
Attacking a watch point.
Looks like you got them all.
You're incorrigible, Handler Walter.
That's it for this job, 621. Return to base.
How many of your dogs must I kill before you learn?
Walter has a bit of a history with Sula, and it's here that we learn that Sula has killed at least 2 of Walter's previous hounds.
Where's 619 and 620? Dead? Which ones did I kill, I wonder?
In the New Game Plus Plus variant of this mission, Sula more accurately muses on the specific hound that he killed.
Was it 618 I killed last? He was good, but he had nothing on this one.
So now we know that Walter has at least 6 hounds to date. There's us, then there's 617, 619, and 620 who were defeated while assaulting the PCA, and 618, and then there's at least one other nameless hound who was killed by Sula. But who is Sula, really?
Pitiful dog. I feel sorry for you. I really do. You may have survived a little longer. Only you had a different master.
His arena bio reads, a veteran independent mercenary who was active in the star system surrounding Rubicon before the fires of Ibis. Sula is a patient of Generation 1 augmentation, or, better said, a survivor, as the technology in its infancy had less than a 10% success rate. Though he escaped the fate of others, Sula is followed by the specter of death wherever he goes. After receiving his surgery, Sula lost interest in most mercenary work, and now lives only for the hunt. It is unclear who currently employs him. So, while it's unclear why Sula hunted down Walter's hounds in the past, we certainly know who employs him now.
Take it out.
Allmind.
Encrypted comms. He must be controlling them too. Don't think twice, 621. Kill him before he kills you.
If the presence of Allmind's ghosts in New Game Plus Plus wasn't enough to convince you that Sula is working for Allmind, there's also this list that appears later showing Allmind's prime candidates for Coral release, and one of them is clearly Sula, who Walter
On to the next targets.
identifies for us as C124. This list is organized into 4 columns, with each column showing a different generation of augmented human. Only generations 1 to 4 are listed here because these are the generations of augmentation that successfully used pulses of coral to augment their subjects. Thus, these augmented humans, including you and Sula, have been highlighted as subjects that should theoretically be able to make contact with a coral wave mutation, which Allmind has detected at the Watchpoint here. Incidentally, this might be why Allmind decided to take over Baus Arsenal number 2 in the first place. There was a coral well there, which might have been instrumental to her plans of locating a coral wave mutation. This C-model mid-range radar imaging overlay in her ghost's log reveals one more thing too.
There
If you
we
look
go.
closely, we see the wavelength shape that's commonly associated with air here. And if you look even closer, we see that this wave mutation, air, is the 3rd known wave mutation. This checks out, as before her, we know of one wave mutation named Seria, and we'll talk about her later, and then before that, there would have been another nameless wave mutation that led to the first coral collapse and the fires of Ibis, and we'll talk about that event in more detail later on as well.
Handler Walter. I'll be coming for you next.
Right now, 621 and Walter are a threat to Allmind. You'd think that she'd avoid killing us since we're on her list as a potentate for coral release, but she clearly prefers Sula, who is far easier to control than one of Walter's hounds. And yet, when we kill Sula,
Handler Walter. Forget about the hound.
he correctly hints that Allmind will be targeting us next. He was her first choice. After all, his arena bio states that he lives only for the hunt, so he's easy to control. But this also explains why he's so honest with Walter about us. He's All Mind's merc, yes, but he's not pursuing Coral release for its own sake, or All Mind's. He's doing it for the thrill, so he plays it straight in his comms, no matter how this fight ends.
That hound's better off dead. It's for your own good, Handler Walter.
And Sula's not wrong, because while it takes All Mind a while to realize it, we do go on to factor in her plans, because we make contact with that third wave mutation, not Sula.
There. Destroy the device in the center. Good job, 621.
Truly, do I need to change up weapons?
Back to base. Wait, no. 621, get out of there.
Who are you? An older type of augmented human, 4th generation.
I read that, lady.
Have we made contact? I am Air, a Rubiconian. Please, you must wake up. Before your consciousness is forever scattered in the coral
Oops.
flow.
Get through all that dust to make contact with the Strider.
At the start of this video, I mentioned that Coral was a revolutionary.
Hey, what's up, Emma Jones?
Turns out
How's it
that's
going?
Kind of underselling it, because here, Air notes that if we get caught in this coral surge, we won't just die. Instead, our human consciousness will get lost within the coral flow. So, yeah, I think it's very dark what almost happens to us here, especially when you consider that a coral surge has probably happened on
Oh.
before, way back when the
You know, I
forest
should
fires
probably
first
assault
began,
boost.
sweeping up and burning all human lives on the planet. Therefore, I think it's absolutely valid.
Going
to
good. How's your
consider
stream
Coral
going so
to be
far?
a
It's
species
alright.
that has subsumed human souls.
Just
in a
going
sense.
through watching
never
this
outright
video, new video
I think
from
it makes Coral
Vati
an
Video.
interesting substance when you imagine
Well,
that
trying to
in
S-rank
giant
submissions.
it started to interface with humanity. And I'll admit that we're getting into a little bit of speculation territory now, but I wonder if this helps to explain Air. She's a wave mutation who is, in no small way, pretty human from the very moment we meet her.
Augmented Super 6462. Vital signs confirmed. Disabling autopilot. Establishing comms link with
Oh boy. Sounds good. Oh, I see. By the way, do you stream daily? What's your schedule?
That massive dose of coral nearly killed
It's
you.
pretty much daily, but it's more just a habit at this point.
I've looked into the enemy craft. It's an autonomous PCA craft, Bauteus.
Strider leg compromised. It's going down.
You'll have to break its pulsar to inflict meaningful damage. I'll synchronize with your brainwaves. And maintain contact.
Nice, keep going good. Where are you from? I'm from the US.
Picking up the massive heat signature. Evasive action, Raven.
Generator destroyed. 3 to go.
What about you? Oh boy, that's a lot of lasers.
Please, you have to focus on winning this.
Oh, it's so floaty.
Enemy systems down. It's silent.
Remember the hardships that made us. Remember
Raven,
that when Rubicon
you
burned,
need rest. But first, a warning.
Drop you follow so whenever your stream get notified I drop. Thank you.
That was just a glimpse.
Trying to do this
A premonition.
maneuvering here is finicky.
Rubicon.
Got this big giant laser eyeball trying to shoot at me.
Observational data. Look, 621. Localized coral explosion caused by the solar's destroyed. There's a certain directionality. Now you've got the target in your sights. It's headed straight for the central ice system across the Arlean Ocean. Like a flock of birds or a school of fish, coral loves company. Which means somewhere in the ice field, there's a huge mass of coral lying dormant.
As befits a coral entity, Air was inclined to stay with her coral brethren. And
Well, if you don't mind, can I suggest you something? Go right ahead.
wherever they go. One interesting thing to note here is that while one coral surge occurred here, it actually triggered a coral explosion way further west. This is because there's a difference between a coral surge and a coral explosion. A coral surge is just a mass of coral moving outwards, escaping a vacuum, perhaps. We later learn that the destruction of this watch point created a number of coral surges, so I assume us destroying the watch point caused the underground coral to vent out and surge in the entire region. But what happened in the northwest wasn't just a coral surge, it was a coral explosion. A coral explosion only occurs when the coral is ignited, and as we later learn, it takes a lot of combustion to ignite coral, so I assume there must have been something that ignited it over there in northwestern Belius
Yeah.
that we'll ever really know, since the whole area was instantly vaporized. At any rate, this marks the end.
Yeah.
Cinders from this coral explosion begin to converge northwest, hinting that there's a larger coral mass in that direction. It's around this time that 621 tells Walter that
Not really sure
they've
why
started
it's
hearing
lying.
voices.
You said you could hear a strange voice in your head. That's a common side effect of old gen augmentation. Could also be from getting caught in that coral surge. Don't let it bother you.
It's interesting to note that 621 is capable of communicating, though it's probably non-verbal. It's also interesting to note that hearing voices was a common side effect of old-gen augmentation. I don't think this is suggesting that other augmented humans had wave mutations in their head like we do. These sentient wave mutations appear quite rare, after all. Rather, the voices that other augmented humans heard probably came from the
Go for
general
some
coral stream,
customization.
maybe from the cinders that burned coral left behind. I bet those voices were probably just dismissed as schizophrenia back in the day, and it's kind of chilling to think that all along those voices were real. So, 621 is an emotionless blank slate as a character
Yeah.
design, but if there's any characterization I'm okay with leveling at them, it's that they're just obsessed with getting jobs done, because despite being ordered to rest, 621 needs little convincing to immediately take up the Balaam mission to reach the intercontinental cargo launcher, to cross the Arlean Ocean, and pursue coral.
Commencing infiltration to grid 086.
Something. I guess I hear a lot.
Connecting steam cylinders. Launching. Alright, Raven. Let's get to work, shall we?
This job requires that you infiltrate Grid 086, an older grid than the one you landed in, and one that's much more dangerous. It's the territory of RAD, a group of armed doses, Rubiconians who treat coral like a drug. A nearby recording of Dosa Ravings mentions their distaste for coral mealworms, which don't have nearly enough coral to satisfy their cravings. Taking Rubicon's blessings raw instead hits your brain with sizzle, and many doses are utterly addicted to raw coral. Perpetually high. This drug use has led to many of RAD's products being a little bit more.
What's your Discord? It's just Fry High. FRYHI.
Came from the feverish mind of a coral-addled engineer and packs a large number of compact explosives into a box that repeatedly circles around to make its deliveries. There's also this RAD booster with an eccentric model number that suggests development under intoxicating influences. As for why RAD was founded as an organization, well, if we look at their logo, I think we can get some valuable insight. First off, enshrined within, in other words, colony revitalization. RAD is Rubiconian force, and if there was ever a time for colony revitalization, then it would have been after the fires of Ibis, which decimated the human population, leaving few survivors. Thus, revitalizing the Rubiconian colony would have been a top priority, and RAD was clearly founded with this goal in mind. This, naturally, leads into the second piece of text featured on their logo, which is reuse and development. RAD refuse to be wasteful as they look towards the future, and many of their AC parts reflect this. Bad Cook, for example, was once a tool used to melt down scrap at ultra-high temperatures. Double Trouble was originally a tool used by industrial demolition craft, and the wrecker parts were originally spec'd for demolition work. Most interesting of all are the parts for RAD's Scout ACs, which are the frame parts that 621 and all of the rest of Walter's hounds use. They're noted as crafts that have commendable ease of use, a fact that enables Walter's hounds to perform well in their very first sorties. But what's really interesting about these crafts is that they were originally spec'd for activities in space, and were commonly tasked with surveying terrain, extravehicular activity, surface surveys, astronomical objects, transporting resources, and recovering scrap. I feel like these spacefaring actions must have taken place before PCA installed their closure system around Rubicon, and if these RAD Scout ACs were once active in space, well, it conveniently explains why an RAD AC is seen on a different planet in the third end.
Damn it.
And it might also explain how Walter got his hands on so many RAD Scout ACs for his hounds to pilot. This is just speculation, but perhaps Walter secured their supply from space outside the closure system. Anyway, Walter has a very close relationship with the woman that now leads RAD, so of course she's okay with him commandeering her craft. This is none other than Cinder Carla, a survivor of the fires of Ibis and assistant number 2 at the Rubicon Research Institute, where Walter was present as a child. We see Carla and Walter in this sketch, present alongside assistant number 1, who was Walter's father, and Professor Nagai. This sketch was done by STK, a famed artist who perished half a century ago during the fires of Ibis. After this, his style was assimilated by AI artists, and with time, mimicry supplanted the real technique. So it is that this is the only original STK sketch we find in-game. All others are done by a masked battlefield artist known as STV, who is shamelessly using AI techniques to replicate STK's style in the current age. Nonetheless, these renderings are still done of actual people, and thus they command a high value among collectors in the know. So they're pretty valuable to us, since we've been using them to put a face to the name for so many characters already. One other curiosity is that every STV and STK sketch is found on All Might's ghost units, suggesting she's either behind these AI drawings or she's collecting them to research the pilots in them. In this piece, we can see Cinder Carla. STV notes, the woman's the one in charge, and she's the smartest of the bunch. Have I seen her somewhere else before, though? Of course, they have seen her before, in the original STK sketch, created half a century ago. Maybe if STV actually drew the art in their paintings, instead of using AI, they would have recognized her. Can you tell I don't like AI art? Anyway, these drawings of Carla give us a hint at a side effect of ingesting coral. It appears to unnaturally prolong one's life, considering Carla doesn't look a day older here, despite there being a half-century gap between these images. Again, if you've read Dune by Frank Herbert, this isn't too surprising of a plot detail, as melange is obviously what inspired coral, and melange too has life-prolonging effects. Alternatively though, I guess Carla could have always prolonged her life by going into some sort of stasis. We know that augmented humans like 621 were put into a cold storage of sorts, so it makes some sense that this tech would be accessible to others to prolong their lives as well. Although I've leaned towards
thanks.
being the reason more so.
You're around, I guess.
Whatever the case, Carla is seen here again 50 years later alongside two other men, one of whom is a faithful docent who has clearly taken one hit to Rami.
You think you can just waltz straight in here? Hope you watch, boss. That's so invincible rubble. Did you guess a good time?
Take care of the bow stitch.
Arena registration found. AC identified as Mad Stomp. Ranked dead last.
Like many other doses, Rummy is utterly addicted to coral-based drugs, and in his perpetually addled state, he has convinced himself that he is an invincible demigod.
Me and Mad Stomp can't be beat. You're no ordinary tourist.
So Rummy gives us another insight into the side effects of coral dosing, a feeling of invincibility. His bio goes on to read, even should reality intervene with a costly defeat, he will forget about the setback entirely by the next day. Only death can dispel his notions of invincibility.
Hostile AC destroyed.
I'll have to step up my own
Looks like you're having fun.
numbered vessel.
Tourist.
Elite.
I've gathered data on the woman from our broadcast.
Don't count
That was Carla, leader of RAD, a formidable dozer faction.
there should be a list.
She joined them 3 years ago, bringing with her a crew of junk wizards and hackers. Within half a year, she seized total control and greatly expanded their operations.
Based on this timeline, it seems like Carla made a play at taking over RAD 3 years ago. Remember, she's secretly a member of Overseer, just like Walter, with a goal to burn the coral. For her, RAD is just a front, a means to an end. It's kind of messed up when you think about it. She's using RAD, an organization with a stated goal of colony revitalization, as a front, while her real goal is to burn their planet and colony back to the same ashes they rose from. The junk wizards and hackers she brought with her might be some of her closest loyalists, members who remain at her side towards the end of the game, where I assume they agree to hack the Xylem and go up in flames.
You know, RAD loves a good welcome party. Come on in, and let's get acquainted.
We're not the first AC to receive a welcome party. The phrase is clearly a bit of an inside joke among RAD, suggesting that they're clearly the subject of frequent incursions that well.
God damn it.
We learn later there's a big concept of territory and turf among doses, and it's something they clearly take very seriously. Because further inside Grid Elite 6, we find a video record of the Collector's last words. It's located in AC under Mortimer's screen, and it reads, "Wait, let's not do anything hasty. I'm no one, okay? I'm just a lowly debt collector. I didn't know this was your turf, I swear. The guy I'm after, he's a tricky one. He could be hiding anywhere in the grid by now. Wait, no please, you don't have to kill me." True to his word, right opposite his submerged wreck is the AC pilot he was seeking. The pilot's name is Nosak, and his AC's name is Bitter Promise, likely named after Nosak's tendency to take on loans, upgrade his AC, and then short his creditors. His arena bio reads, "An independent mercenary who snuck onto Rubicon, hoping to get rich quick, taking advantage of the chaos brought about by the extraplanetary corporation's forays. Under Nosak's economic theory, the funds of others are but extensions of his own resources."
I put your money to good use. Enemy reinforcements incoming. Just take a look at what my new AC can do. My credit score's only gonna go up. Get it through your thick skull. Why would I return what I borrow?
That's the Juggernaut.
You gotta put that shit to work.
I wouldn't recommend
Then
taking your head off.
lost credit.
It won't be able to
Hostile AC destroyed. Let's move on.
hit its blind spot.
Alright, good. That's enough.
Hostess.
Made your point.
Walter knows how to
I surrender. Just not worth the lawsuit. Come on, I'll let you through.
This mission ends with a fight against the Smart Cleaver, a piece of tech clearly designed to scrap hostiles, melt them down for reuse at the same time.
You're not afraid of anything, are you? I like that.
That's the Juggernaut. Heavy mobile cannon.
This, Carla decides to cut her losses, work with you instead. Remember, she doesn't know that you're Walter's hound. Not yet, anyway.
Hey, tourist. It's me, Carla. I'll have to work some of my magic to track you down.
Understood.
I've got a little job for you. Take a look.
Update from Snail in command.
Raven, it's highly unusual to receive messages from hostile sources. Did she hack into Allmine's mercenary database?
When you went through Allmine's arena, did you ever notice a few entries that were glitched? First, Sula's glitches out,
That's the Juggernaut. Heavy mobile cannon. I wouldn't recommend taking your head off. It won't be able to keep up with Steel Haze. I'll distract it
then
while you hit its
a little later, Carla's glitches in a similar way.
That's the stuff.
Carla admits that she's been digging around in there.
The Combat Aptitude Evaluation Program, number 11, right? What is this?
Raven, I just got an update from Snail in command. We've got enemy
Kind
reinforcements
of creepy to
incoming.
go around raiding strangers, don't you think? Well, whatever.
Here we go faster.
But you can have this old data.
Now, this is a little open to speculation, but pretty sure Sula's entry glitches out as a result of Carla digging for information. After investigate Mouse 2 and obstruct the mandatory inspection, we established that Carla has begun looking into the Ghostcraft and Kate Markson, and I think it's led her down a path to investigating Allmind and Sula as well, who currently works for Allmind. I personally also think that it's Carla who's responsible for hacking the data logs from all of the destroyed Allmind and Ghostcraft. These have descriptions that read, "Appears to have once been heavily
Shit.
encoded, then cracked by a third party." And out of every character, Carla displays the best proficiency at hacking, especially when it comes to hacking Allmind. Speaking of hacking, that's what some rival doses attempt to do with Carla's tech. New Game Plus.
You see, a certain someone smashed up all my defense hardware. Now I've got rival dozers muscling in.
I just got an update from Snail.
It's the Junker Coyotes.
We've got enemy
I never did get on.
incoming. If I don't intercept them,
The Junker Coyotes are a rival doser faction. Some are even former members of RAD.
Juggernaut
And
destroyed.
with Carla weakened, now they're moving in on her territory. So you're enlisted to defend the place instead.
He knew who you really are.
Fellas, we got company! And it ain't dumbass Rummy that one of RAD's newbies.
We'll blow the sky high.
Matter. I've taken that contingency into
This one
account.
is on you for taking out Rummy. He would have kept watch at least.
Confirmed. Coyote Force eliminated.
In New Game Plus, the Coyotes get a little further into their plan and manage to set up hacking units on Carla's servers as well.
That's 5. All hacking drones destroyed.
Just in time. They nearly had us. I've sent the Coyotes and their pals a little counter-virus. Their servers are officially fried. Maybe that'll teach them to behave. Wait, the radar. Are there more of them?
They even hire a merc to help them, Iguazu, who, at this point in the story, is likely still AWOL from Balaam.
You know, I really owe you one. You got lucky at the dam, and I'm gonna prove it. You're gonna die, freelancer!
The most curious thing that happens in this fight, though, is that during your fight with Iguazu, Allmind gets involved with her ghost units. In this fight, their comms are encrypted, but in New Game Plus Plus, Air manages to decrypt these communications, revealing that the ghosts are trying to take you out because they've identified you as an impediment to the release project. Remember, at this point, Allmind definitely doesn't know that you have the wave mutation from the Watchpoint in your head. After all, as established earlier, the wave mutation in an augmented human is her much-needed third factor for triggering Coral release, and while you helped her secure Baus Arsenal number 2, after that you went on to kill Sula and destroy the Watchpoint as well, putting a huge dent in her plans. It was these actions that explain the last line in this description, where Allmind notes that that man, Walter, has greatly delayed our efforts to put the third factor in place. Because Sula is dead and the Watchpoint is destroyed, she
what we
probably
can do
thinks the
here.
wave mutation is gone. So right now, you're considered to be an impediment worth killing. That is, until a later moment in Chapter 3, when suddenly Allmind identifies you as an
A
asset
number of times we've been here.
instead of an impediment. So what happened in between to change her mind? Well, I have a theory, and it's that in attempting to take you out here, Allmind actually starts to suspect that you have the wave mutation she was seeking in your head. And I think this because of what Iguazu says during this fight, while Allmind's ghosts listen.
That ringing in my ears again. It'll be peace and quiet when you're gone.
Whenever you fight Iguazu, he suffers from a ringing that gets worse when you're around. The one exception to this is when you fight Iguazu in the Attack the Dam mission earlier on. In that conflict, he hears no noise. Why? Well, I think it's because at that stage in the game, Air isn't present with us. Indeed, in the final mission of New Game Plus Plus, Iguazu finally does realize that it's Air who caused the ringing in his ears.
I'm with you, Raven. Now, I can fight by your side.
That damn noise. It was you all along.
This is because Iguazu is an augmented human from the Coral generations, like us. And like us, he's sensitive to Coral voices, like Air.
Damn it! I would have had you. For the next sight, Raven. Don't you dare think you've won.
So I think, and again just speculation, but I reason that by overhearing this exchange, Allmind eventually figures it out and tries to get 621 and Air on her side. But that's in Chapter 3. To get there, we have to make it to the Intercontinental Cargo Launcher and cross the ocean.
One more thing, Raven. Cinder. Carla's nickname? That's what the Rubiconians call survivors of the fires of Ibis.
Landing at Site B. Extracting
But if the fires happened half a century ago... Well, it It could just be some dozer inside joke.
Thanks to Carla's personality, she can pass this off as a joke, but the truth is, she was there, and she was probably ingesting the coral back then as well. After all, even her portrait reveals that she already had addictive habits.
This elevator goes straight to the top of the grid. The outer shell.
We've extracted Comrade Messam.
Sadly, that's beyond my territory. I mean, once you're out there, the PCA satellites see everything.
Just a little more, Raven.
A few of the stupider dozers took it as a challenge, went out to prove themselves.
He must have refused to
You can
talk.
guess what happened.
Again, we see an example of the doser's misguided sense of invincibility, a feeling that, ironically, proves fatal for them. In this mission, we can even eavesdrop on what were some of their final words to each other. They say, "Want to hear something wild? Turns out those big shots of the PCA who run the satellites take their orders from an AI. They're working for a computer, man." It's our first reference to the system, an AI that directs the PCA to enforce planetary closure, just like they're doing here with their satellite cannons, preventing anyone from getting near the cargo launcher. Fittingly, this part of the grid, with the launcher on it, is higher than the others, and thus it's in range of the PCA's satellite cannons. Out here, we even get to see a red sky, likely made so by the higher concentration of coral cinders in the air, caused by the coral explosion near the watch point. A closing facility is a place where operations have been suspended, and PCA have certainly done that here with the cargo launcher. Once the Rubiconians must have used the cargo launcher to transport resources, and it's interesting that the PCA haven't just destroyed this launcher, but instead they opt to defend this place because it links to the central ice field and the coral convergence is there, so they don't want anyone making their way across the ocean. So I guess they figure no one's going to be able to access it with all their defenses around. Destroying it would have been smart, but PCA seem to have sent a sea spider to trip up anyone who gets this close, and they have a lot of confidence in civilians.
Great. You found a speed weapon. That tourist is a sea spider. One of the Institute's relics left to haunt Rubicon. Now what's it doing here?
As mentioned earlier, sea weapons are Institute weapons, programmed with an autonomous desire to protect the coral. In my opinion, it's no coincidence that it shows up here. Later, we get evidence that the PCA has repurposed the Institute sea weapons to defend points of significance, so I don't think the Sea Spider is any exception. Of course, that doesn't explain why the Institute built a Sea Spider in the first place. To answer that, well, the name suggests it was designed to defend places on or even in the sea. And later we do find an Institute city that once floated on the ocean, so I guess it makes sense that a Sea Spider would have once been an important asset for the Institute.
Enemy systems down. The generator's going to explode.
What?
They were using coral for fuel.
Air is upset here, because the coral generator burns coral for fuel. I've seen a lot of people speculating that that explains why the coral weapons sound like screams, the cry of the coral as it burns.
Oops.
That was quite the show, tourist. How about we get back on track? Hop in the container. I'll operate the launcher from here.
Sides of Gallia left an
Brace yourself.
Oh, it's such a cool cutscene.
You're Walter's hound, right?
Command's mission. Escort the Rubicon Liberation Front's
Well,
transport helicopter.
guess a dog can't choose its master.
We
Still, tough luck. I feel sorry for you. I really do. Oh, and one more thing. You know the cargo launcher's strictly for cargo, right?
Carla knows that even if you succeed in Walter's mission, that it's your fate to burn in the fires of Rubicon. No wonder she feels sorry for us.
Raven? You see it too, don't you? The voices of the coral. Currents coursing across Rubicon.
Secure the area.
Walter was
Save big on top mattress brands during the Memorial Day event. Get savings on trusted Sealy support, the latest innovations from Tempur-Pedic, and the luxurious comfort of Stearns & Foster. Easier sleep is here at Virginia Furniture Market.
Joe was correct in his judgment. The coral. It's here, in this desolate place.
A little rest, and I'll pay you back.
Heading for the next site, Raven. Keep us covered.
Looks like you've made it to the central ice field, 621. Good. I'm done tying up loose ends.
I want to quickly note, Walter only ever says that he has to tie up loose ends in missions after PCA is involved. Considering there are multiple examples of him interrupting PCA communication systems, I want to say that it's possible that Walter has a backdoor set up into PCA systems. That's what allows him to tie up all these loose ends.
Arquebus found their own way in and are ready to deploy survey squads. And it looks like Balem's come running after you scoped out the place too. You know what's going to happen. Business as usual.
Chapter 3 immediately reveals a little bit more about these coral trails, as the first mission has you steal some data from Arquebus's coral survey in the central ice field. According to this data record, cinders from the fires of Ibis are also considered to be inert coral. If something is inert, it means it's no longer chemically reactive. You'd think that that would mean the inert cinders couldn't be used as fuel, but there's a future mission where we fly through dense coral cinders and get infinite fuel, so I'm not sure it can be that. Instead, perhaps this inert coral can no longer reproduce or serve as a data conduit. Whatever the case, inert coral, residual coral, cinders, whatever you want to call it, this coral still has a voice, and I guess you could argue that these voices are the voices of ghosts, since this coral isn't really considered alive. Moving on, this log talks about how Arquebus also surveyed PCA's old bases on the central ice field, revealing that they were built on planet to help facilitate the PCA construction of the closure system, only to be abandoned afterwards.
Even the Rubiconians have forsaken this lifeless place.
Indeed, the Rubiconians don't really have much of a presence here on the central ice field. Perhaps this is because the fires of Ibis originated here all those years ago, and maybe it burned this area the hardest. And on that note, the last piece of observation data reveals a cavity beneath the central ice field. This is the place where the fires of Ibis first originated. But before we can conclude our survey of the base and unearth the secrets it hides, this happens.
Wait!
You don't know
Put this
what
down.
you're saying, girl.
It's the father! No!
Dying embers.
Trespassers to Rubicon, this is your warning. Disarm and withdraw from the closure area immediately. Resistance will be regarded as a declaration of war, and you will be marked for termination.
Escorting a prison break. All
The PCA makes no exception.
give you that.
The PCA, they're coming.
With the exception of the PCA force that came for the mandatory inspection of Baus Arsenal No. 2, this is the first PCA force we've seen that isn't subject. This fleet, its outriders, are something else. force reserved for special missions, and appear here to suppress the corporations who have clearly gone one step too far in their efforts to exploit Rubicon. So they're being suppressed here. Shortly afterward, the PCA act quickly, wiping out several of Archivus and Baylor survey bases and managing to push back corporations for the very first time. In your first playthrough timeline, the Rubicon Liberation Front celebrates the suppression of the corporations, but in Game Plus timelines, they are better. They give you missions to take out PCA forces as well, fearing that corporations will eventually commandeer PCA technology and use it against them. In one such mission from Middle Flatwell, an RLF leader, you're tasked with taking out 2 LCs and a HC. LC stands for Light Cavalry, and HC is Heavy Cavalry. It's a piece of cutting-edge tech that the PCA deems very powerful.
They must be confident to come here alone. No matter. His beauty's more than a match for some patchwork AC.
One thing you have to remember about armored core units is that there's a lot of variance in what an AC can be. As our opponent condescendingly points out, ACs are patchwork. They're modular pieces of tech that are built to the preferences or shortcomings of the pilot. There's also a lot of variance when it comes to AC pilots. Some are dolts, like Rummy, who combine a melee chainsaw with literally the worst arms for melee attacks. And some are gods, like Rusty, channeling pure anime Gundam main character energy. The PCA Heavy Cavalry, on the other hand, is a non-modular tool, expressly designed for one purpose: suppression of corporate forces. In many ways, it's beyond AC tech, but in other ways, it's beneath AC tech. After all, a HC pilot can't change their build based on the latest patch notes. Haven't they heard laser turrets are the meta now? Bazookas are the meta now. Laser tanks are the meta now.
No. The HC cutting edge.
You live up to your name, Raven. You fight like a bird in flight. You may yet fly higher, beyond Rubicon's scorched skies, to chase the freedom we never knew.
Raven, I've been thinking about what Middle Flatwell said. The others are so used to fighting and shouting slogans that they've given up thinking. But he's exploring the potential for something new.
Flatwell sees a future for Rubiconians beyond just living within the closure system of the PCA. He may be the RLF's second in command, but he thinks
laser cannons, you say?
zealous slogans for the Coral to abide with Rubicon. Dolmayan might have inspired a generation of Coral warriors, but it's Flatwell who seems more relevant in the current age, especially considering the crisis of faith that Dolmayan was going through during the prison rescue. Anyway, as the corporations prepare their own counterattack on PCA forces, Balaam gives you a mission to distract the PCA, tasking you with destroying a derelict watchpoint that the PCA plan to repair in the future.
Code 1-5, unaffiliated AC.
An attack? Why?
This watchpoint is linked to a coral vein below ground, and it's here for the second time that we destroy a watchpoint sensor and trigger a coral surge, much to Walter's surprise.
A coral surge? That shouldn't have been enough to... 621, pull out, now!
What I find interesting here is that Walter is consistently surprised that you keep triggering coral surges by destroying watchpoint sensors. This guy obviously knows a lot about coral, and he doesn't anticipate that destroying a sensor should trigger a surge, so there's clearly some factor here with you that he hasn't been able to account for. So I was thinking, what if it's air? We know from Professor Nagai's logs that a wave mutation precipitated the coral surge that led to the fires of Ibis, so I'm assuming it's the presence of air here in these watch points that are triggering coral surges here too, even if she or Walter never realize it.
Code 31C. What's the system's verdict?
Proceed? How exactly?
This is the first time we ever hear indirect orders from the system, the AI that commands PCA personnel, and it doesn't paint a very flattering picture. The AI simply tells the PCA enforcement squad to proceed with combat, even in the face of a coral surge that will cause certain death. At best, it reveals that the system has no concern for PCA lives, and at worst, it's an overly simplistic order that betrays the system's ignorance about how best to handle this situation.
We don't have time for this.
Hurry, Raven. The coral's coming.
621, don't fall behind.
Main system activating combat mode.
One misstep, and that coral surge would have swallowed you whole.
Liberation Front's
Raven,
helicopter.
must you always put your life on the line?
In the next mission to attack the PCA's refueling base, we listen in on some chatter from the PCA's enforcement squad. They state, "We do what the notice from the system tells us. For now, focus on mopping up the corporate forces. Make sure to keep an eye on the independent mercenaries too. We have Branch to thank for causing this mess. No doubt they've landed on Rubicon." Here we learn that the PCA holds an organization called Branch responsible for the corporate foray onto Rubicon, and by extension, they're also starting to hold you responsible, for the real Raven is a part of Branch, and you've stolen their call sign.
Commencing extraction of Comrade Celia.
Watch point report checked out. Call sign Raven. Priority subject for termination. High on the list.
To deal with you, PCA have sent their Ectromon, their executioners, to quickly catch mercenaries like you while you're on mission. And if you die here, the lieutenant actually notes that something is off with you. You're not the Raven they've prepared for.
Target Raven terminated. Code 4, requesting intelligence review. Observations found to contradict briefing.
Meanwhile, back in the Bellius region, the Rubicon Liberation Front is plotting to retake the wall, which Arquebus are now using as a coral survey base. Beyond that, Arquebus have also started setting up some other infrastructure, including a re-education center and an ominous place called the Factory.
Bro, I swear
Text
those
starting
things
this mission reads,
are so
"To
annoying.
facilitate smooth progress of the Coral Response Survey, a temporary branch of ARAC is to be installed on Rubicon. Primary subjects are to be Rubiconist prisoners of war." This reveals that Arquebus has a corporate policy of re-education, not just on Rubicon, but off-planet as well. From what we learn later, re-education is a torturous process that realigns the victim's priorities with Arquebus, making their human lives worth something to the corporation. That said, there are those that can resist this process. The log goes on to state that subjects who are resistant to re-education and who possess a certain degree of combat skill are to be processed according to the relevant procedures and transferred to the factory. Later on, it's revealed that the factory contains pilots that are used for experimentation. It's also
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
procedures for processing resistant pilots seems to involve some sort of amputation or mutilation. Perhaps unsurprisingly, this disturbing text comes from none other than V2 Snake, the leader of the Vespers 2nd Squad and the man in charge of Arquebus's re-education measures here on Rubicon. Re-education involves neurological tech, and fittingly, Snail and Arquebus as a whole are quite obsessed with augmentation surgery, which is a similar neurological pursuit. Snail's bio reads, "After receiving Generation 8 augmentation surgery, Snail continued to receive follow-up treatments as new technologies entered the mainstream, so as to make their merits his own. Many augmented humans have died in order to assure the safety of his repeated adjustments." Before before Snail's 8th generation augmentation surgery, there were 7th gens like Swinburne, and this is the man that the RLF have tasked you to kill in this mission. Somewhat less capable than the other Vespers, Swinburne is in charge of overseeing the wall's defenses back in Bellius. His bio reads, Swinburne is a product of Generation 7, the first to receive experimental augmentation using coral substitution technology. This granted him enhanced aptitude as a pilot without the usual complications, but with no obvious indication of either efficacy or potential side effects, Swinburne's fears and doubts turned into an overpowering paranoia, the final jewel to crown his odious personality.
What the? Stop that! How dare you attack me with my back turned?
His paranoia regarding his own abilities shines through here when Swinburne cuts the fire short.
What? Let's not do anything hasty. You realize I lead the Vesper 7 squad, which means I hold the purse strings. Every single transaction goes through me. Let me go, and you'll still come out on top. Understand? You're quick on the uptake, aren't you? Splendid. Not like those savages. Keep up the good work.
Let him go, and the post-mission briefing confirms his survival, though that he's to be sent in for re-education. Taking this option also means betraying the RLF. Gave you this mission, and that has dire consequences as well.
Such as the Oathbreakers due. Pay the Sanzu toll!
They won't have anything left to throw at us now.
The Sanzu toll references Japanese mythology, where it is believed that a toll must be paid before a soul can cross the river to the other side, so to speak. This line comes from Rokumonsen, an independent mercenary and a proud weeaboo. He was watching your encounter with Swinburne, ready to dive in to finish you off if you betrayed the RLF. His profile reads, a wandering independent mercenary who shelters with the RLF. Well versed in long-lost classical theater, he has a particular interest in ninjas and kabuki, relics of the past that he learned of from the Japanese immigrant culture, which now heavily influences his eccentric style. It's important to note this overt reference to Earth and its cultures persisting. Anyway, his profile goes on to explain why he fights for the RLF now. Once, when Rokumonsen was on the brink of starvation, he was rescued by Ziyi, who offered him food and shelter, and ever since that day, he has been the sworn enemy of those who would do her and her comrades harm. We see these two here in the STV sketch, with the younger Ziyi offering Rokumonsen food. With acts of kindness like this, it's not surprising that Ziyi has earned so much of the RLF's affection.
I shall pay my dues. Watch me, good comrade Zei. Your reward has come. Heed me, Oathbreaker. Treachery benefits none. Coral will take you there.
That was certainly an adventure.
Next up, heavy missile launch support. The Coyotes are back, harassing RAD, except this time they've joined forces with the PCA. What's really interesting about this mission is the area it takes place in. You're actually launching missiles from Watchpoint Delta, the same place you met Air after triggering that coral surge. Apparently, Kala has taken it over, and now considers it RAD territory. So it makes sense that the PCA want to take it back, using the Coyotes as their pawns.
We started without you, tourist. Get to your position.
We did arrive as scheduled. I suppose they're an eager bunch.
We're all set, Chief. Commencing missile launch sequence.
Kala intends to show them some fireworks, and it's here that we meet her systems admin for the first time, Chatty Stick, an AI whose profile reads, the right hand of RAD's ringleader and chief engineer, Cinder Kala. One day, Kala built a simple, suggestion-based AI to provide basic support and occasional entertainment. However, no matter what conversational prompt she gave him, he would never say more than necessary. Instead, it seemed that he was content to be a good listener to his creator's free-spirited, eccentric ideas. Ironically, Carla does find it entertaining that Chatty never provides more dialogue than necessary. That, coupled with his extreme attentiveness to serving his creator's needs, actually gives him a lot of personality. That said, some comms records from other doses reveal a distaste for AI. Earlier, they questioned the system, and in that same log, they muse on Chatty's AI as well.
Missile launch sequence at 90%.
Warning to all illegal combatants. Disarm now or face immediate and indiscriminate termination. The PCA makes no exceptions.
A warship comes from a grid in the distance. Presumably, this is territory of the Coyotes, who now share a kennel with the PCA. And it's this grid that you destroy.
Missile launch sequence complete, Chief.
You're the best, Chatty.
Activating combat mode.
Here come the fireworks.
Commence mission. Investigate Baus Arsenal number 2.
Raven. They really are like fireworks.
And I'm picking up nothing. What happened here?
This next mission doesn't take place in Bellius or on the central ice field. It takes place in between, in the Alian Ocean, which hides a floating city built by the Rubicon Research Institute long ago. This floating city is called Xylem, a word that refers to the part of a plant that sucks up water from root to leaf, sustaining the plant. Initially, I speculated that this might mean that the xylem could gather or monitor coral from the sea, like a plant taking up water. Alien does translate to ascend, after all. However, in cut dialogue, Air speculates that the city might have served as a maritime relay for transporting Rubicon's resources, meaning that Rubicon Research Institute might have simply used it as a relay station for moving resources over the ocean. And another piece of speculation I have is that maybe this is the ship that brought the first settlers to Rubicon in the first place. In addition to whatever other function it has, the Xylem is described as a colony ship, and the vast city suggests that it was mainly used as a habitat for people long ago. Now, however, it's uninhabited, except for the autonomous defenses it left intact here. These defenses have taken down Walter's survey drone. He says it was sent by a friend, but we eventually discovered that he's masking the fact that he sent this drone himself, and he did this to see if the Xylem would still be operational for them later in the story. Later on, the Xylem becomes a big part of his plans. His drone reveals Xylem remains fully operational. The Planetary Closure Administration did their best to hide the place, but I'll find a way there soon enough. The only ones who know are the PCA, and who? Who other than the PCA knows this place is here?
It contains faint traces of coral.
Walter could be about to say Overseer here, since he obviously knows about it, so would Overseer. But alternatively, he might be about to reference someone else, All Might. Past missions have proved that Carla and Walter are investigating All Might, digging into her simulations and cracking the codes from her ghost units. It's not ridiculous to think that they're slowly figuring out how much she knows. What's more, these units that you're fighting over the survey drone, they're identical to All Might's ghost units that she fights with, except here they're called antigens, deployed as autonomous defenses for the Xylem. I want to quickly shout out the YouTuber Smotown here, as I wouldn't have noticed that these were ghost units if not for their own video on AC6's lore.
Bruh, this is gonna be fucking impossible, dude.
Hours-long video isn't somehow enough for you. Anyway, in that video, Smotown speculates that all of All Might's ghost craft must have been Institute machines due to their presence as antigen units on the Xylem, which was built by the Institute. And very recently, they were proven 100% correct in that speculation. That's because not long ago, Future Press released their official guide for Armored Core 6, and in it, all official names for enemies were revealed. Here, we can see that the Ghosts have an IA designation, clearly classifying them as Institute machines, alongside the Sea Spider, the Ice Worm, and others. This is significant because without this, you could actually argue that the Ghost units are here because of Allmind, and that she integrated them with the Xylem or something, but no, these, and all of the machines that fight you here really, are all designed by the Institute.
Now we know what happened to the drone. I've located an ECM fog control device. See if you can access it. Once the ECM fog is cleared, we'll be able to see what the city really looks like.
ECM systems offline. Switching to encrypted circuit. Registration number RB23. Call sign Raven. Apologies for the intrusion. You have been followed. Contact is imminent.
Hostile incoming. AC.
This reveals that someone else also knows about the Xylem. Thumb Dolmayan.
I know you, menace.
Although Allmind does say that they followed you here, so it's also possible that he just trailed you or that PCA helicopter all the way here. Earlier, we established that Thumb Dolmayan was a Dosa vagrant who developed an ardent belief in symbiosis with the Coral after the fires of Ibis burned his star system. What we haven't talked about yet is why he started to have those beliefs. And the answer is that Dolmayan too started to hear a voice in his head, a wave mutation just like ours, the second of 3 wave mutations that we now know exist. One of Dolmayan's logs reads, "How long has it been since I first saw her voice? Fear not," she said. "There will always be plenty." She told me this as I was imbibing Rubicon's blessing one fateful day. "If I were you, I'd never allow this," I replied, and I was forever ashamed by my deceit. So Dolmayan was concerned about the loss of the Coral once consumed, but the voice in his head told him not to fear. Coral's ability to replicate is legendary, after all, so she argued that there would never be any real loss. His log goes on to read, "Symbiosis." She seemed to be contemplating the meaning of the word. This moment of happiness we share comes at the cost of her siblings, sacrifices all. Is that symbiosis? Surely not. As opposed to our contact with air, which is powerful and constant, Dolmayan relied on dosing for contact. Perhaps this suggests that he wasn't an augmented human. Whatever the reason, he only received a brief moment of contact, and only when he was dosing. Thus, he harbored a desire for longer contact with the voice in his head, a desire both of them shared. As always, she whispers to me from inside. She tells me that she found something in the journals of Institute City, something about the potential for symbiosis, Coral release. If such a thing is truly possible, then perhaps I can join her on the other side. The fact that his wave mutation is going through the journals of Institute City reveals that this wave mutation has the exact same data mining talents of air. And since they're going through past journals, this likely took place after the fires of Ibis, but perhaps before the PCA closed off Institute City. So it was that Dolmayan learned about the potential for Coral release, something that he probably wished he never knew. Suddenly, Dolmayan carried the fate of mankind on his shoulders. He could pursue Coral release and elevate mankind and Coral to a new plane of existence, or he could do nothing and never achieve symbiosis for himself or anyone. After all, no one knows what lies beyond the Rubicon. STV notes, "Old man looks like he's seen some things." Dolmayan's logs go on to read, "She says that she will respect my wishes. If If I cross this threshold, tragedy will befall the world of mankind. Yet, if I do not, here I stand, too afraid to cast the die.
You can see him too. The voices, just as I once did.
This reveals that Dolmayan no longer sees the voices. Perhaps his wave mutation went silent, as the potential for coral release died in Dolmayan's heart.
How much of our hymn have you heard, Menace? Coral, abide with Rubicon. Coral, endure within us all, for none of us shall cast the die.
In the end, Dolmayan resolved to inhabit an active state of intentionally not casting the die. The oft-repeated hymn, Coral Abide with Rubicon, is a plea born of Dolmayan's fear and the reverence of Adosa's symbiosis. It's nothing more.
Saria, forgive me. Forgive this old craven.
This reveals that Dolmayan's wave mutation too had a name, Saria, though it seems she has long since fled Dolmayan's mind, or she was lost long ago when Dolmayan committed to Adosa's symbiosis with the coral and nothing more.
Target destroyed. Good. The Rubiconian symbiosis is no more than suppression and exploitation of coral. We hope this encounter was informative.
Dolmayan's watered-down symbiosis is an affront to Allmind, who sees coral release as the way forward for humanity, a race of beings that she sees as creation's potential. Here, Allmind fulfills that familiar rogue AI trope of thinking that they know what's best for humanity, even if it comes at the expense of what the actual humans want. Back at the wall, yet again, now we learn that the RLF's action against Swinburne's forces was ultimately unsuccessful, as the PCA swooped in and suppressed both Arquebus and the RLF. Now it's Balam's turn. They were sending forces to attack the wall, even back when it was controlled by the RLF. They sent them to attack Arquebus as well, and they're still sending forces now. Balam just can't let go of their failure to climb the wall. In this place, we find a new video record, a rousing speech delivered by an AC in front of RLF forces. Specifically, the AC in front looks a lot like a Burn pickaxe, which was piloted by Index Dunham before we destroyed it. Their speech is as follows. They say the coral was plentiful, infinite before the fires of Ibis, and then the Institute burned this planet dry. The academics in their ivory tower underestimated the power of Rubicon's blessing, and when it laid their weaknesses bare, they burned it all to ash. From Dolmayan's writings, we learned that the Rubicon Research Institute did indeed know about coral release, and they knew what that might mean for mankind. They kept journals on the topic, after all. Therefore, when they burned the coral, it was probably because they understood its potential to destroy or alter humanity. The AC giving a speech here suggests that the RRI burned the coral because they were weak, as if they couldn't handle symbiosis with the coral, which is kind of ironic, considering that Thumb Dolmayan, the founding father, fears symbiosis via coral release in much the same way. It makes you wonder, if the RLF do eventually achieve their goal of having the coral abide with Rubicon, how long will it be until they crave a more complete symbiosis? Will they always be happy with just dosing? And what if Dolmayan is dead in this future? What is the hand without its thumb? Can a mere hymn protect against coral release forever?
End of the line, killer. I will avenge Father.
This is Ring Freddy, your would-be assassin, and the final finger we've yet to meet. A warrior of the Rubicon Liberation Front, paramour and personal attendant to Dolmayan, Freddy maintains an aloof distance from his fellow comrades. He entered the battlefield so that the father of the Liberation Front would never need to be alone. A paramour is an old-fashioned term for lover, often used in the context of a secret relationship. This closeness is even conveyed in the RLF's STV sketch, where Freddy would be this character here, armed and online. Not exactly subtle.
Menace to Rubicon. No wonder Father feared you. Jeffrey, the next attack. Father, give me a sign. What should I do? Father, guide me. Please.
AC candle ring has gone silent.
But we're not here for Freddy. We're here to strike a blow against the PCA on behalf of Balin.
Sure.
Since the PCA have since taken over the war
Come on.
from Arquebus.
Code 31A, sustaining damage.
Requesting backup. Code 7-8.
They're piggybacking on SG's Bellius link. Not the most secure of lines. There. I've made sure they can't call home for help. The rest is up to you.
If only I could reach the system.
Again, this isn't the first time that Walter has cut into PCA comms. He did it before at the Watchpoint 2. He really must have a backdoor installed or something.
Code 2-3, attending C. That AC must be our independent mercs. Moving to terminate. Course it works, you're all the same. Violate the law and you'll pay the price. You've made a big mistake, merc.
He's weakened 621. Go for the jugular.
Enemy system silent. HC enforcement craft destroyed.
Go for Team Raven. That was beautiful, that's
Ah!
survivor, no doubt. Let me give you some advice. Join the Red Guns. Have a career. On the ranks. Keep that unlucky number. Eventually the curse will get you too. That's all. Don't forget what I said about putting you to work.
Here, Gun 6 Red reveals his superstition for the curse of gunboating. By getting you to climb the ranks of Red Guns, perhaps he really just hopes that you'll eventually leave behind that unlucky number.
Oh, come on!
Icefield, 621 has been ordered to destroy the same PCA Special Forces craft that assaulted the Baus Arsenal in the All-Might timeline. In this timeline, the RLF are fearing that the corporations will eventually assimilate that same PCA technology. So, the RLF give you the chance to take out the PCA cataphract here. By now, the PCA have established that Raven appears to be operating on Rubicon once more. They no longer consider Raven to be dead. However, they still haven't figured out that it's you fighting with Raven's name.
Raven, priority target for removal. You've got some nerve showing up here. That leak of yours started all of this. Did you really think I'd let you walk?
The leak in question is almost certainly the fact that Coral had been rediscovered on Rubicon, and this information getting out sent the corporations into a frenzy.
You've made Rubicon the corporation's playground. We had law and order under the PCA's watch.
Previously, a death dialogue against an Ektramoy captain revealed that they'd been briefed on Raven's fighting style, and this mission reveals that they've even been training for that rematch.
Code 44, send me what you've got on priority target Raven. The combat simulator has misled me. Who are you?
You'd think, if they were prepared for a fight against Raven, that they wouldn't bring a craft with a giant weak spot in its center, an opening to attack the MT craft that is just begging for the power bunker.
This
Oof.
over.
Forget about this Raven character. Borrowed licenses are always trouble.
For this next mission, Arquebus has tasked you with taking out the PCA's berthed heavy warships, while Rusty takes out their comms base. Luckily for you, the heavy warships are made out of paper mache. Unlucky for you, the comms blackout doesn't last long, and PCA elites catch you and Rusty at the base.
Code 1-5. Target for termination sighted. Time to pay the piper.
Sorry to keep you waiting. I've got your back, buddy. Hope you've got mine.
We're so close. I just need something that's not gonna be
Overcome the PCA here,
750 every time I
the
fire
Ice
it.
Worm, an autonomous sea weapon designed by the Institute and later commandeered by the PCA. However, it can only follow their command to attack you for so long before resorting back to its core imperative, to defend the coral.
It's changing its behavioral pattern. Answering to a greater imperative. To protect the convergence.
After this, the corporations team up, and even RAD gets involved. To defeat the Ice Worm, you'll need something strong enough to punch through its coral shield, which weaponizes coral directivity, the same directivity that led you to the ice field and the convergence in the first place. Luckily, long ago, Carla started developing a secret project, a rail cannon. What she wanted this for is hard to say, but whatever her target was, it must have been large. A PCA satellite, perhaps? Unluckily for
Okay.
her, the rail cannon was stolen, along with more credits and tech, by a man named Honest Brute. Initially, she trusted this man, him and what's likely his Wrecker AC, or
Totally.
even seen alongside her and Rummy in this STV sketch here. And as discovered by user DeltaV112 on Reddit, Honest Brute might have been the one who outfitted the RLF's Strider with all its weaponry. We can infer this because another Reddit user Just a New Leader, recently discovered that many RAD parts contain the letters C, B, R, and S, letters that are likely shorthand for Carla, Rummy, Chatty Stick, and Honest Brute. And the Strider, EB0309, has the B as likely shorthand for Brute. Indeed, the Strider was weaponized by R&D. Brute's bio reads, leader of the Junker Coyotes, a major dose of force. Brute was originally hired by R.E.D. His smooth-talking, affable nature quickly caught the attention of Carla, who found him quite unlike the average doser. But high self-confidence and social assertiveness are common psychopathic traits, and when it was discovered that the man was a psychopath and a pathological liar, Brute fled, taking a considerable amount of R.A.D.'s funds and technology with him, a loss that was too great for Carla to tolerate. But tolerate it she did, apparently, as she's known where his hideout is for quite a while now. It's in Grid 012, which Carla reveals is one of the first sectors they built. This also confirms that the Central Ice Field was likely the first place that the Rubicon Research Institute settled in, before expanding across the Arlean Ocean to Bellius, where more modern grids were built on the coast and then inland. Their states of disrepair correspond to their numbers. The lower a grid's number, the older it is. Thus, the greater its state of disrepair, and none that we see are as far gone as Grid 012.
Welcome, tourist. It's a delight to enjoy the company of a visitor from so far away.
Here at Grid 012, Brute commands a force of
Oh my god,
the
please.
same force that has some territory in Bellius as well, where they stage attacks on Carla. Here, though, we find a log that reveals the Coyotes were former members of R&D. It reads, I don't know about Andy Boss. You think we can trust him? You think Carla's better? She's got the nerve to call herself a freaking Cinder. Nice try, lady, but you're a little young for that stolen valor. Man, are those people at RAD full of shit or what? What's ironic here is that Carla was telling the truth about being a Cinder, while honest brute is a pathological liar.
We built that AC at RAD, Tourist. Don't underestimate it.
How Milktooth weeps. How the rail cannon weeps. Torn from their mother. Oh, they must miss Carla so. I weep too.
A milk tooth is a tooth from a set of early childhood teeth that eventually fall out and are replaced. It's a very poetic name for an AC that eventually fell out from RAD and was ultimately replaced by RAD.
My friend, this is a gift. Thank you.
Interestingly, Groot welcomes death. I guess he didn't like who he was or was pretending to be. Interestingly, Groot is also one of the few people who
Oh, come on, dude.
It's somewhat surprising that she asks you to kill him. She cites being confused by him and must find this human to be unlike any others she has come to know. I guess this makes sense, considering Air is a being that wishes for a greater symbiosis with humankind. Brute, it seems,
Bro!
be a fitting vessel for that future. Before we leave this mission, it bears mentioning that Allmind has been here. One of her craft can be found in this grid. The data reads the after effects of fires above us, causing anomalies that frustrate attempts to observe a number of sites. The central ice field is dotted with many such blind spots, areas that cannot be observed with climate. PCA would be keen to exploit these, and will surely be the first to yeah. So Allmind is, or was, searching for watchpoints. Perhaps this was recorded at the time she was searching for a wave mutation. In the next mission, Allmind comments that a couple of surges followed the one triggered at Watchpoint Delta. It's even shown that one eventually occurred here, Baus Arsenal 2, where Allmind was presumably still in control. Presumably, these upsurges aligned with her goals as they freed the coral from underground to eventually converge in the central ice field. But there's a problem.
Very bad
Corporations have begun seizing the coral from
aerial performance on this.
This coral is effectively already lost. In this mission, she embodies the sentiment of, if I can't have it, no one can. And Arquebus are truly confused as to who would risk destroying such a precious resource.
The Liberation Front?
The Rubiconists wouldn't risk burning the coral. Who's behind this?
It does not please us to lose the orphaned coral, but when the release project succeeds, their sacrifice will be rewarded.
Here, Allmind almost gets credit for treating the coral like a living thing. To her, it's just as valuable as a human life, which is to say, it's only useful if it aligns with her goals. If it doesn't, it's better off being destroyed. In a way, Air is kind of the same. She too doesn't love the idea of burning the coral, but she'll still boot up a coral generator and fire coral weapons if they mean securing a better future for the coral. For them, the ends justify the means, and it's more about the greater good. That said, Allmind is definitely a lot more ruthless than Air. At least Air succeeds in having a human element, unlike Kate Markson over here. In the next mission, Air tasks you with extracting historical information from the Engebret tunnel. Engebret, or Engebray, I believe roughly translates to narrow and bright, two words that work pretty well considering the coral surge that just swept through as they were placed.
Thank you for doing this for me, Raven.
In the coral's wake, a number of PCA wrecks have come back online. It's hard to know if these machines are actually inhabited by the coral, but later we learn that coral can indeed control craft as well. It doesn't just power them. This reminds me of a word I read in the parts list. That's Coral Swarm Intelligence. The Rubicon Research Institute weaponized Coral's swarm intelligence and used it to create weapons like the Coral Missile Launcher, which uses coral to track enemies and detonate, so maybe something similar is happening here. Weapons like the coral launcher are just some of the Institute's questionable experiments. And among the Institute's other questionable experiments was the C-Pulse sensory augmentation of human subjects, mentioned in the data log down here.
Another old research institute, I see. This is about the first augmented humans. The same coral technology that created you. But without it, we never would have made contact.
It's interesting to think about. Human augmentation was clearly not ethical, especially when coral was involved, but will it all be worth it if you can move things towards a better future for humans and coral? Or is it better to burn it all away so that these atrocities can never happen again? In this next mission, you're given the task to defend a corporate base against a PCA fleet, but another mercenary has already beaten you to the job. Raven.
Augmented human, C461. We're not here to take back the Raven name.
Woman from that broadcast.
However,
That was Carla, leader of RAD.
we will see if you can do it justice.
The word Raven has a long history in the Armored Core franchise. Previously, it was the name for all mercenaries, no matter who they worked for or why. And in Armored Core 6, being a Raven means something slightly different, but it still harkens back to that age of independent mercenaries and their operators.
A Raven is a symbol of resolve. The will to choose what one fights for.
So, in this game too, Raven is more of a title. To be worthy of it, you have to embody the one thing at the heart of any independent mercenary, and that's the free will to choose what you fight for.
Raven, we can still... Alright. We'll watch this one. See where they go on a Raven's wings.
The most curious thing about this mission is how Raven and their operator knew you would be there. I feel like they must have had some insider knowledge of the job you were about to take on and were able to anticipate your arrival. And this brings us to Branch, the hacktivist collective that Raven and their operator are a part of, working alongside Chartreuse and King.
Let's get started, Raven. Astrocrown's pilot, callsign King, has an 89.6% mission success rate. Umbrox is piloted by Chartreuse, an aggressive bulldozer with unrivaled firepower. Intercept the two targets.
There's our merc. Go take care of the objective, King. I'll clip this one's wings.
Not alone. This is a Branch mission. I'll support you.
So, earlier we established that Branch, this mysterious organization, were responsible for luring corporations to Rubicon. This lure involved leaking that the coral was still here, and it also involved an attack on the closure system, which Chartreuse of Branch was responsible for attacking. Chartreuse's bio reads, an independent mercenary who arrived on Rubicon around the time that the coral response was rediscovered, held to be a member of Branch, a hacktivist collective active in the Rubicon system. Chartreuse is the second oldest, and is said to have dealt a critical blow to the closure system during the plot to attack Station 31. As for King, his bio is much the same, except it specifies that he's the oldest of the roster, and that he confounded an entire fleet of heavy warships in a solo diversionary maneuver during the attack on Station 31.
This isn't right. It's the Gen 4. You belong in a museum, not AC.
Chartreuse has this foolish attitude with the emblem and AC parts to match. Her tank part in particular has some lore related to her as well. It was designed by Artemis's Advanced Development Division, but during its development, the specs were stolen and leaked by an independent mercenary. Logically, this thief was Chartreuse, and the fact that she didn't just steal it for capabilities than the breaking of Rubicon's closure system.
There's more to you than meets the eye. You might not be so different from the other Ravens after all.
As for King, Air notes that he has a 89.6% mission success rate, and as such is advertised as the ideal mercenary. It's a good reminder that even though they're part of Branch, they're still mercenaries who like to choose the jobs they take on. Speaking of missions though, they've taken on an arquebus job to attack the dam here, just as you've taken on the job to defend it. However, if you die before Raven arrives, then King reveals that you were why they were here all along.
Looks like it was a false alarm for our friend. We're leaving.
What about the mission?
We've achieved our objective. We're done here.
It's important to them that you live up to the Raven name. So important that all of them resolve to keep on fighting for Branch and a new Raven, even if they're the last ones standing.
Chartreuse. A new Raven will arise one day. And I'll have a perch ready for them.
As for the name Branch, I think it could be symbolic of a few things. It could literally be the branch that's only there to support the Raven. It could represent branching paths and the free will to choose and shape the future. It could even be a branch of another organization, like Overseer, perhaps? Overseer's emblem is a tree, which is also fitting, but we just don't know. But I could imagine there being a sequel to Armored Core 6 that would take place after we've earned our renown as a Raven, and in this sequel I could definitely see Branch playing a bigger role. King, Chartreuse, and Raven's operator can be seen here in this sketch. King is easy enough to spot, and we can tell Chartreuse and Raven's operator apart because Raven's operator appears to be wearing a sort of headset here, while Chartreuse stands confidently, giving the thumbs up towards Nightfall, which is Raven's AC. Anyway, with this job out of the way, we're finally clear to destroy the Ice Worm. Long ago, the Rubicon Research Institute built this thing, presumably for its ability to tunnel underground, though it also doubles as a virtually indestructible, undying unit for defending the coral. It requires everyone working together to bring it down.
It's not every day you see competing forces working together like this. It's time, 621. You ready?
This mission depends upon you, Raven. Let's go. I'll be here to offer support.
Commence mission. Eliminate all PCA forces occupying
Main system activating combat mode.
Code 1-5, solo AC.
Commence mission. Michigan will take command.
Commencing operation with combined AC force as per the Balaam Arquebus agreement. Move out, maggots! Time to die!
Act like a professional outfit and you might live.
Requesting
Who does
backup.
that creep think he is?
Target
I ain't
termination
here because I
site.
wanna be.
This is P4 Rusty. Rail cannon is good to go. Don't die before I get a chance to fire, buddy.
Tourist, got a message from the chief for you. Enjoy the show, and don't forget to smile.
Primary shield disabled.
Shield loss confirmed. Initializing ORC firing sequence. Connecting EML modules. Opening energy turbines. Output at 80%. Keep moving, 621. Sighting correction A-OK. 90, 95. I won't miss.
Secondary shield down.
Gun 13, the head's open for a direct hit!
Code 1-5, target has reached the facility.
That freak actually did it.
Did what? The bare minimum. This is just the first hurdle.
Been compromised.
The target's deployed drones,
Available
tourist.
forces. We need
I'll
time to
handle them.
activate the HC.
V4, load the next shell!
ahead of you, Commander.
Finally, someone with their head screwed on straight. Never thought about switching sides?
Sure is an honor to be praised by the Red Guns hell on 4 legs. But I'll pass. You won't get rid of me that easily. I am the Vespers. I am Arquebus.
Moving to terminate.
Do this to me, Headbringer. I'm not going down first.
Pathetic. Is that all Balem's Red Guns can muster?
I see Arcus at the top Vesper provide running commentary. Gun 13, show him how actions speak louder than words.
Wait, something's wrong. Fallback 621. What? You've underestimated this beast. My AC's compromised.
The coral. It's out of control.
Looks like things just took a nasty turn. I'll set the ORC to maximum output. We can't afford to lose control of the situation. This next shot'll be my last.
We're not through yet. Its primary shield is getting stronger.
I'm out, tourist. You're on your own now. Withdraw.
621. Stay cool, buddy.
Primary shield down.
Good work, buddy. All EML modules connected. Energy turbines at
Oh,
full
come
capacity.
on.
Output at 80. 90. All emergency valves closed. Disabling limiter. 100. 110. 115. Rail cannon and emergency input. All or nothing.
Go Lambo.
The target's coral shield has been wiped out.
On you now, buddy.
The coral response is getting stronger. Hurry!
That was really pretty way to do that.
Clear, it's gonna blow!
You shitting me? The freelancer really did it.
It's finally over. The blast will contaminate the area. Get out of...
Coral voices. Lost again. Raven. There's something I have to tell you. The coral. It's my family. My brothers and sisters. I am but a single wave. Born from the coral tide. A Rubiconian without a body.
That's
No one even knew I was there for such a long time. Raven, you're the only one who...
Main system activating combat mode.
Commence mission.
Go get your rest, 621. Things are going to get busy. I'm great. You did good.
Raven. The targets are stationed in 2 camps. Attack 1.
In their negotiations with Arquebus for this mission, Balaam foolishly opted for the glory of putting down the Iceberg, with 621 as their mascot. In exchange, they allowed Arquebus to augment their strength with the PCA's own warship fleet. Now, with the PCA's greatest asset gone, the war for the Coral reignites. And while Balaam was the one forging ahead into Watchpoint Alpha, in truth, the balance of power is increasingly tipping in Arquebus's favor.
Code 7-8, requesting backup. Enemy threat level unknown.
621.
I'll head over
You
as
ready?
soon as the HC is...
We'll be going down deep. And there's no guarantee you'll come back.
Code 31C.
Still, you're the only one who can do this. I'm counting on you to reach the Coral.
Watchpoint Alpha. My brothers and sisters. And deep inside.
The first depth of Watchpoint Alpha has you progress past the energy weapon platform called the Nepenthes. Its namesake is the infamous pitcher pod that lures insects to its edge with a sweet smell, only for them to slip into the digestive fluid at the bottom of the chute. It's aptly named, as this tunnel is much the same, and the Nepenthes has already turned half of Balam's forces to ash. I feel like it's even possible that Balam intentionally progressed past the Nepenthes without destroying it, leaving it intact
Bruh.
to fire at their pursuers, which is reckless. But then you come along.
Nepenthes sustaining damage. Overriding Death Squad's defense plan.
Confirmed. Target destroyed. Mission accomplished.
The Nepenthes
Oh,
platform is silent.
Depth 2 is more interesting. The infrastructure here is that of a rail network designed to transport resources. And here Balam have set up ambushes. Here it's revealed what many of Balam's forces now view as.
Been waiting for you, Raven. You're gonna die, traitor.
Eliminate them, 621.
But none hate you more than Gun 5 Iguazu.
You're my ticket back above ground. Let me tell you, I'm sick and tired of this pit. It'll all be over once you're sorry.
I know what we gotta do.
Interestingly, Iguazu thinks he can negotiate to get out of this job if he brings Balam your head. But as usual, his proximity to air messes with his abilities.
My ears. Not now. That quack messed me up. Learned some new tricks, huh? I know you're laughing at me. What makes you so special, freelancer?
In reality, 621 is just emotionally detached because of their own augmentation damage. Nevertheless, the lack of response triggers Iguazu's own paranoia and sense of
Derp.
spiral.
Only no kill. Derp.
In New Game Plus, Iguazu confronts his own shortcomings, sending a higher ranked assassin after you instead.
You must be Raven. Yes, you do seem rather extraordinary. I'm grateful for your assistance. I see why poor Iguazu needed to beat you. Attack 1. Why abandon his red gun pride and succumb to worthless Christian Yorgis lands? What a pity. You shouldn't have been so hard on the poor lad.
This AC pilot is Cold Call, named after his habit of unsolicited visits. His bio reads, an independent mercenary who bargained his way into an effortless entry to Rubicon, having anticipated the extraplanetary corporation's forays, but they made their move. He is an assassin after all, naturally he's good at thinking ahead. A specialist in corporate wet work, Cold Call removes undesirable elements on behalf of those who do not wish to be seen getting their hands dirty. Quick to identify a fellow assassin, he claims that you can smell a real kill right through their AC. Indeed, Cold Call does have extraordinary ability to suss you out.
Of course. Gen 4 augmentation, I presume. Mixed with something else. No, poor Iguazu must have feared it. The unknown within you.
There's even an STV sketch that looks like it could depict Cold Call. The artist notes read, caught a couple of high killers on the bed, managed to sneak in a sketch without being noticed. The fool won't pay back what he owes, one said. If I had to guess, the fool they're referring to would be Nosak, the AC hiding in the grid who refuses to pay his debts. A pair of feet on the floor could belong to one who tried to force Nosak to pay those debts, only for Nosak to kill them and flee. One of the hired standing killers could be the Collector, the AC pilot who was caught and killed by the Doses while trying to track down Nosak. As for the man hiding behind the desk, could this actually be Nosak hiding? Or is it the artist drawing themselves in the scene? Why does it look like they're holding a child? Of all the sketches, I feel like I could be getting something wrong in this one, so sound off in the comments if you have a better idea.
Iguazu has more than a grudge against you.
Jesus Christ!
We should be careful.
After Iguazu, you fight the Enforcer, an AI-controlled prototype that PCA developed.
Defense program phase 3.0. Switching determination mode. Servicing target.
Enemy analysis complete. That's the
Ugh.
Enforcer, an AI-controlled prototype developed by the PCA.
PCA's heavy reliance on AI is what helps them to maintain the closure system on the planet, ensuring that even after they're gone, the AI will remain. There's not much else to say here except it's in this mission that Walter starts to get suspicious of you. I think he's finally starting to understand that the voice in your head might be something more.
I'll leave the question of where to strike first.
Seems like smooth sailing, 621. As if you hardly need help from me. When do you get so good at exploring?
Confirmed. Enemy unit is silent. Walter should have some data on the next sector. Let's take a break for now, Raven.
In Depth 3, a high-powered laser barrier is blocking the way. To shut it down, you have to destroy the adjacent reactor, but an AC is waiting to prevent your escape.
Defense program phase 5.0. Pattern C. Terminating red.
No vital signs. There's no pilot.
That's Institute Tech. 621, there's no time. Get rid of it.
This AC is named Ephemera. Its AC parts reveal that it's an unpiloted AC developed long ago by the RRI. An old development quirk allows for its piloted operation, though the unpiloted AC itself can function at a higher level than human nerves can facilitate. And it's these Institute ACs that Allmind finds particularly interesting, for they have a distinct focus on the biological analogies between humanity and coral. The ACs enable the two to complement each other and evolve in symbiotic harmony. A fascinating approach, she says. And while we're on this topic, we can also use Allmind's analysis to compare corporate ACs and Rubiconian ACs. As for the extraplanetary corporations, for example, they believe humanity to be powerless against its environment. Thus, they maximize the power of their ACs to subjugate their surroundings. And in contrast, Rubiconians' ACs are defined by the human element and have a tendency to focus on harmony with the human body in varying degrees, a sign perhaps that they have embraced humanity's potential as beings that exist within nature, that they intend to maximize this through optimization of human-driven output. And as for Allmind's ACs, she tends to select the parts that have high compatibility with the traits of older generations of augmented humans. That's because she specifically needs old augmented humans for her plans for coral release, and you aren't her only customers. She has had many plans.
This request comes from Allmind. True to form, they've sent us an encrypted message with top-level security. I expect it must be about coral release.
Augmented human C4621. Raven. There is an obstacle to the project that must be removed. The target is V3 O'Keefe, an Archivist Special Intelligence Officer. A second-generation augmented human, O'Keefe was once our ally within the corporations. But it seems he has had a last-minute change of heart and means to betray us.
Ow.
Never specifies how she knows O'Keefe has had a change of heart, or how he means to betray Allmind. If I had to guess, I think O'Keefe may have simply stopped feeding Allmind intel from within Arquebus. He's become apathetic.
The release release project must succeed. Only an exceptional augmented human.
Yeah.
In this screen, we see 4 generations of coral augmented humans arranged in columns. Within these, highlighted in red, are Allmind's exceptional subjects that she, presumably, believes can trigger coral release with a wave mutation. C1249 was Sula, C4789 is Iguazu, C4621 is the player, and C3291 is... well, we don't know who C3291 is. You'd think it would be O'Keefe, but Allmind just specified that he's a second generation augmented human, and C3291 is a third gen. So, okay, what about Dolmayan? It's possible it could be Dolmayan. Dolmayan also communicated with a wave mutation, though his communication was enabled by dosing, and it's never mentioned whether he was an augmented human at all. It could be the original Raven as well, it could be Rusty, I guess, but at this point I'm speculating so hard that it's easier to just admit we don't know. We don't know who C3291 is, and I don't think it's possible to know. But what do you think?
Looks like they found a strong candidate this time. You're one of Allmind's, right?
The PCA are going
Tired
to
as I
fight.
am, I'm not ready to die yet.
It seems you're not the first assassin that Allmind has sent. But you can be the last. Be careful, Raven.
O'Keefe's bio reads, O'Keefe is originally a member of an older generation of augmented humans, and during the Island 4 disturbance, he worked as an agent carrying out espionage activities. He was later headhunted by Arquebus's information department and agreed to sign up on the condition that they provided him with Generation 9 augmentation surgery to counteract the coral burn-in on his brain. This last part confirms that reversing the burn-in effects of coral augmentation is indeed possible, which is good news for 621. Unfortunately for O'Keefe, however, it doesn't seem to have managed to improve his state of mind. His emblem and AC name is a good reflection of his self, Baron Flower, once a light like Wilton.
Life on Rubicon sure does suck, huh? Don't tell me you like it here.
But even in his despair, he's identified that his despair is still human, a far cry from whatever coral release will bring, possibilities that mankind cannot even begin to comprehend.
You don't even know what you're doing, do you? Let me tell you something. Allmind ain't worth it. You think you want coral release, but you don't. Shovel down your planned rations. Slurp your coffee-flavored sludge. Sure, it sucks. That's being human.
Speaking of coffee, the artist STV comments that one of these Vespers offered him a cup of coffee or something like it. So if I had to guess, O'Keefe would be this man here, with a buddy by his side, someone good-natured, trying to cheer him up. So his buddy would likely be Rusty.
Maybe now. I'll get some sleep. See you on the other side. Rusty.
This last line is very curious. At this point in the story, Rusty isn't dead. We've actually yet to face him in the Death's mission. So why does O'Keefe say, see you on the other side? It could be that O'Keefe meant this in the sense that Rusty will inevitably die eventually and that O'Keefe will see him then. Or this line could be more ominous, and O'Keefe might know that Allmind is coming for Rusty. Allmind does have a data log that refers to Rusty's new AC and ominously says the time is not yet right, so who knows? O'Keefe might have even been tasked with killing Rusty, and perhaps this is what caused him to turn away from Allmind, and as we find out later, Allmind is most likely the character who gets to Rusty in this timeline, so it's possible that she kills Rusty and O'Keefe knew this, but this is all just speculation.
V3 O'Keefe. He may seem like a pessimist, but he lives for the way things are. A life that can't coexist with what we want.
This is a very dark take from Air. An uncountable number of O'Keefes exist within this universe, and Coral Release will thrust that uncountable number of people into assumedly what is an sort of eldritch, unknowable state of contact with the Coral. At least O'Keefe died while he was still human. The war fatigue of other Vespers like O'Keefe is something that the RLF mention in their next mission, which is to ambush the Vespers V8 Pater and V5 Hawkins. To this end, Middle Flatwell, the de facto leader of the RLF, accompanies him. We know that Flatwell holds sway of contact within Arkhams, so it's possible that contacts like these are how he lures these two Vespers into the ambush.
What could this emergency call for V2 be about, sir? That's just Snail being Snail, boy. He loves to send his minions running. Sir, there'll be trouble if he hears that kind of stuff.
Those were our two numbered Vespers. Ready when you are, Raven.
Stop! Ambush! Pater! What's your status? Superficial damage. No abnormalities.
We'll watch this one.
Good. Open fire.
See where they go on a raven's wings.
That was a clever ruse, wasn't it, Pater? Wouldn't have been the first time Snail sent us running at a moment's notice.
If I had to guess, Pater is shown here in the STV sketch for the Vespers, alongside Hawkins, mostly by the process of elimination. In terms of ACs, though, Hawkins is the one in the quadruped AC. His bio reads, like Swinburne, Hawkins is a member of Generation 7 and has lost a great many colleagues and subordinates to the progress of science in revolutionizing the surgery. However, he has reached a certain peace with their sacrifices, knowing that his generation of surgery is far safer than those of the past, free of the loss of humanity inflicted on the Coral technology generations or the grisly accidents of the interim generations. For a while, I'd been wondering why there is never a mention of any augmented humans from Generations 5 and 6, and Hawkins' bio explains why. These were interim generations. This was the period where augmentation was being pivoted away from using Coral, and it's very likely that few, if any, survived these processes. So, in summary, Generations 1 to 4 used Coral pulse augmentation, Generations 5 and 6 attempted to substitute the Coral's effects with something else, and by Generation 7 and beyond, they had achieved that substitution effect. The most modern form of augmentation is Generation 10, of which Pater is a product. Pater pilots the reverse joint in this mission. His bio reads, a product of Generation 10, the latest and currently practiced form of augmentation surgery. Pater represents the culmination of efforts to preserve the patient's humanity through Coral replacement technology. You'd think that as one of the most modern augmented humans, Pater might be higher in the ranks, but instead it's commonly the opposite. If you're a modern gen augmented human, that means you've probably had less time to stick around and climb their ranks. Pater's bio goes on to read, at times his noticeably unreserved remarks hint at an underlying lack of empathy. One might assume this to be a side effect of the surgery, but this trait has in fact been with him since long before his augmentation.
We have detected more transports attempting liftoff.
Want to join
V5 Hawkins down.
No! V5, come in! V5, Pater. It doesn't sound too bad.
Wait.
Pater's AC
Transport
is
detected below
named
the cliff.
Dual Nature,
Investigate
with an emblem that also reflects his two-sided self.
Enemy AC. Coming from above.
The Liberation Front?
The Rubicon.
It was a privilege, Raven.
Who's behind it?
We're war buddies now.
Multiple
Maybe I'll find a comrade in you yet.
them all.
Here, Flatwell has the same tendency as Rusty to label you as a war buddy. It's another subtle hint at Rusty's true allegiance with the RLF. When Rusty calls you buddy, he's using RLF language, not something he would have picked up from the Vespers. If you take the mission to ambush the Vespers, Rusty takes the mission to intercept the Red Guns instead. In this battle, he kills Gun 1 Michigan, a task you can take on yourself if, for some reason, you want to kill the best character in the game.
Just get it done. There's nothing more for me to say.
You can sense Walter's reluctance to kill Michigan. Again, earlier we established that he has a history with Michigan, and this reluctance all but confirms that.
Attack! Get in there, you maggots!
Looks like Archibald sent some clown on a suicide mission. Real cute.
The only clown around here is you, Kennebec. You're talking about the wall climber, the worm killer, the only GUM-13 who's managed to live this long. Until the Liger Tail deploys, the odds are not in your favor. You better keep the emergency eject primed.
Michigan's harsh language often betrays his affection for his troops. He knows them all by name, and he would rather they eject than die in battle against the wall climber.
Yeah. I heard that Merc took down Gun 5 at Kwasu.
Iguazu? Oh yeah, the deserter who pissed his pants and ran.
Oh, but hey, I forgot we still kept you around. Iguazu's worth 100 of you, which means, Albany, the Merc is worth 20 of him. You're doing nothing productive. Why don't you do the math for us?
The answer's 2000 Albany, sir!
Shut your stinkhole and start shooting!
AC Ligertel incoming. It's Gun 1 Michigan.
Listen up, maggots. This field trip is now a hunting expedition.
There's only one of them!
You can go home now, or follow me if you got a death wish.
Ready to die, sir!
Fifth wave. They're surging us.
How can one Merc do this alone?
Time to finish the job, 621. Don't let them overwhelm you. Shake off the pressure.
Raven, top front.
Hit hard. Fight back!
Maggots. Creepy. You can tell this to Mr. Beat all Michigan died of a
AC Ligertel destroyed. Gun 1 Michigan down.
It's over. Didn't think I'd see the end of the Red Guns. You did your job, 621. Michigan knew the score. Balaam's withdrawn from Rubicon. The politicians will be fighting their war now.
Again, I kind of wish we knew what off-planet conflicts looked like. Is Balaam HQ facing consequences from the PCA for their intrusion into Rubicon? It's hard to say.
621. We're picking up where we left off. Now that you've dealt with the laser barrier, we can explore deeper underground.
At this depth, we find mealworms, creatures that the Rubiconians used to breed for food, as they can subsist on coal.
Breeding pods for the mealworms. Looks like they're out of commission now.
From this middle point, the mealworms could likely be transported above ground or further down to the city below. And it's in this depth that we find a comms report titled Message for Uncle. This MT is carrying a message referencing Steel Haze Ortus, the secret RLF project that is a collaboration between Baus, Elcano, and now Furlong too. It reads, "I have to get this back to Uncle. Furlong agreed to provide technological assistance."
Might call it there for now. We'll be back later. Get something. Something to drink, something, I don't know. We'll see what happens anyways. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. Peace out.